their only win of the season so far, the Hamilton Ticats stunned the experts when they rode the passing arm of Ken Hobart to an upset win in Montreal over the Concordes. Hobart began camp as their third-string quarterback. Now he's number one. The number one receiver in the CFL is the Lions' Mr. Excitement, Merv Fernandez. If the ball is thrown his way, he'll catch it. But even 4 TDs against Calgary couldn't prevent their first loss. Will Fernandez and the Lions be overconfident against Hamilton?
Well, I think last week, the BC Lion football team learned a great lesson. And I think the lesson that they learned is that no matter who comes to BC Place or wherever the BC Lions go, we've got to play 60 minutes of intense football on all 3 phases of the game, offense, defense, and special teams. We need to do that again tonight against the Hamilton Ticats.
Tonight, it's John Matthews and the BC Lions against Hamilton. Live from BC Place Stadium in Vancouver. Hi, everyone. It's good to have you with us wherever you're watching across the country tonight. Leo, if Hamilton have got any chance against the 5-1 Lions, their defense is going to have to come up with a great game tonight.
You're right, Steve. Defense has been carrying them all year, and I think an interesting statistic is that no CFL quarterback this year has finished a game that they've started against the same Hamilton Tiger Cat defense. However, they're spending too much time on the field and they're getting tired. Quarterback Ken Hobart and the rest of that offensive unit have got to get out there tonight. They've got to do what they can do to put some points on the board and go for broke. Now, Hobart, incidentally, has a bad wrist. He's got a bad elbow, but he's got to forget about that tonight. Over on defense, the people that are going to have to handle it are going to be the front 4 for the Hamilton Tiger Cats. The reason they're going to have to do this is because they can't expend linebackers, defensive backs, and people like that on blitzes, because that creates a one-on-one situation. And when you create a one-on-one situation with Fernandez and guys like that, you're in a world of trouble. Now, I'll be asking a lot for the Hamilton Tiger Cats to beat this team tonight, but they can take consolation in the fact that last week Calgary came in here and did the trick, so they just got to keep their fingers crossed, Steve.
Offensively, I would think the BC Lions would have to get the ball to Kevan Jenkins a lot more often than they did against Calgary.
I think the biggest improvement in the BC team this year has been their running attack with Kevan Jenkins, and when he's running, they're winning, and so that's what they're going to have to do, and I expect them to do some running tonight out there.
We're moments away from the opening kickoff here at BC Place Stadium in Vancouver. Right now, let's go to CFL Control and Brian Williams.
Thank you, Steve. Good evening, everyone. The Ticats and the Lions. We take a look at the standings, beginning with that Western Conference. They, of course, reflect Saskatchewan's big win over Edmonton last night. Don't forget, though, Winnipeg home to Calgary tomorrow. Lions can go up by 4.
The Charlie O'Keefe Sports Game Stars from tonight's action here in Vancouver. Offensively, Kevan Jenkins of the BC Lions, and defensively, Ben Zambiabi of the Hamilton Ticats. Congratulations to both of them. They get a portable stereo system from Citizen Electronics. The final score once again here in Vancouver tonight, BC over the Hamilton Ticats, 21-11. Now back to Brian Williams at CFL Control.
All right, thank you, Steve Armitage. That Hamilton defense respectable tonight, but they need an awful lot of work on offense, in particular at quarterback. We take a look at the standings. First in the Western Conference, the BC Lions lead by 4. Winnipeg home to Calgary tomorrow. No change in the Eastern standings. In baseball
the BC Lions are now 6-1 on the season, and Hamilton is 1-6 as the Lions beat the Ticats under the dome by a score of 21-11. BC is first in the West with 12 points now. Winnipeg in second spot with 8, and Winnipeg will host Calgary later today. You can see it on
all the action. Let's join our CBC sports crew.
A week ago last night, a successful coaching debut for Bud Riley. He saw his Calgary Stampeders upset the BC Lions as Joe Barnes had one of his finest professional days, completing 35 of 50 pass attempts to establish a pair of Calgary club records. 14 of those passes went to Emmanuel Tolbert to equal another Calgary club record. 2 of them went for touchdowns. Another favorite target was Tag Rowe as the Stampeders won their first game of the season. To prevent the Stamps from enjoying similar success this afternoon, Bomber coach Cal Murphy feels his club must put pressure on Barnes.
Well, you know, they did a good job of converting their routes against the zones that BC showed them, and I think if we can try to make him throw the ball a little sooner than he would like and try to prevent them from converting those routes, we might have a little bit more success. The other thing is I think we're going to have to get to a little quicker as well.
And this afternoon, Cal Murphy and his Winnipeg Blue Bombers will attempt to stay within 2 points of the front-running BC Lions as they entertain the Calgary Stampeders at Winnipeg Stadium. Hi, everyone. We heard Cal Murphy say he'll try and pressure Joe Barnes. Ron Lancaster, sometimes easier said than done.
I really believe what Cal said is they're going to blitz the Stampeders this afternoon, and I know that he'd love to see Joe Barnes be sacked 10 or 12 times, but a good quarterback won't get sacked when he sees the blitz. He'll throw the ball quicker, so what Cal wants, get the hands up, force them to alter to throw, and hope the defensive backs pick it off.
In comparing the Blue Bombers this year and last year, of course, they went on to the Grey Cup, I think some people might be a little surprised at the statistics. The Bombers this year, in many categories, are doing better than they did a year ago.
Well, we've heard the whole first part of this season that the Bombers were struggling offensively, and I think people forget they were a second-place team last year. And if you look at their total offense, they're ahead, and Willard Reeves is also ahead. So I really think the Bombers are just about where they want to be at this time of the season.
A lot of people believe that for the Bombers to be successful, Willard Reeves has to run well. In their rout of Ottawa, he had over 200 yards. He had a big day against Hamilton. Will he get the ball a lot today?
I think he'll get the ball a lot. I think that it takes pressure off any quarterback when you have the opportunity to use a running back like Willard Reeves. But I also think that that Calgary defense will be physical. They've simplified it. All they do is line up and play hard-hitting football.
Better tighten up their chin straps.
Better get ready.
The opening kickoff coming up in just a moment, but first, let's go to CFL 85 Control and Brian Williams.
Thank you, Don. Once again, good afternoon, everyone. Coming up at halftime, highlights of Canada's big win today in World Cup soccer. I'll update baseball, and we will introduce you to the new members in the Canadian Sports Hall of Fame. It's a busy day. Up next, we'll take you back to Winnipeg for the Stampeders and Blue Bombers. Inducted into the Canadian Sports Hall of Fame, we take a very special look. The Hall of Fame dinner was Friday night at the Sheraton Centre in downtown Toronto. And it's a very special night for all of us at CBC Sports, as our Ron Lancaster is one of the new members. In Saskatchewan, they called him the franchise, the little general for 16 brilliant years. Ron standing by. We'll talk with him live in just a minute from Winnipeg. Here's a good friend of mine, the first man to write a nationally syndicated sports column, the dean of Canadian journalists, Jim Coleman. He received the Order of Canada in 1974. Welcome, Jim. Jocelyn Lovell brought Canadian cycling into the international spotlight, was injured in a training accident 2 years ago.
When I eventually got the letter that said I'm in the Hall of Fame, I was very, very honored. For one of the few times in my life, I was deeply honored.
Boxer Sammy Lufspring merited consideration for induction into the Hall of Fame as both an athlete and a builder. A brilliant boxing career for Sammy Lufspring. Our Federal Minister of Sport, Otto Jelinek, himself a member, introducing sailor Hans Fogh, won a silver medal for Denmark in 1960 in Rome, and bronze last summer in Los Angeles for Canada. The best tight end to ever play in Canadian football, Tony Gabriel.
To enjoy 11 years in the CFL, first of all, which I never believed possible. Then on top of that, to be chosen as an inductee of this in '85 for the Sports Hall of Fame of Canada, this is just a tremendous feeling.
You deserved it, Tony. Here's Ike Hildebrand. Connie Smythe once called him Canada's best ever lacrosse player. He was good in hockey, too. Playing coach for the Belleville McFarlands, winners of the World Hockey Championship in 1959. Also in attendance, the star from Sarajevo, speed skater Gaetan Boucher. Jake Godard presenting him with the Lou Marsh Trophy as Canada's outstanding athlete for 1984. You know what made it a very special evening for all of us there? This is the 30th anniversary of the Canadian Sports Hall of Fame. We salute its chairman of the board, Jake Godard, curator Tom West. I'll tell you, they do just a tremendous job. It's adjacent to the Hockey Hall of Fame on the grounds of the Canadian National Exhibition in Toronto. We salute the Canadian Sports Hall of Fame. We are very proud of Ron Lancaster. It was a big night for him Friday. His wife, Bev, was in attendance, also his son, Ron Jr. Ron, as you stand by live in Winnipeg, you said Friday, though, in your speech, it was a very big night for the best football fans anywhere in the world, the people of Saskatchewan.
Well, Brian, I was very fortunate. You know, number one, you're always lucky to get to play the game to begin with, but I sort of got to go play where I felt over the years that year in and year out, the fans of Saskatchewan are, without a doubt, the best in the CFL.
Ron, I think you expected to be in the CFL Hall of Fame with your great numbers after your career in Canadian football. What about, though, being elected to the Canadian Sports Hall of Fame?
Brian, you know, you don't ever really expect to be in anything. And, you know, you often sit back and look around at all the great athletes that I've had the opportunity to see. And you always wonder why, because I was doing something that I really enjoyed doing, and that was playing football. And, you know, I had a lot of great guys that I played with, and I had George Reed, who I ran in the ground over a period of 12 years. And, you know, I just had a lot of success, and it's attributed to a lot of people that I played with, plus a guy like Eagle Keys that gave me the opportunity to play out here. And, you know, you never really expect it, and it's an honor, and you never know what to say when you get it.
All right, Ron, I know I speak for those magnificent football fans watching today out in Saskatchewan, and from all Canadians, from all your colleagues here at CBC Sports, congratulations on a well-deserved honor.
Thank you, Brian.
All right, we'll talk more with Ron and Don Whitman in just a minute. Stay with us as CFL 85 continues. Jeff Gowan, a great expression. Their tails are up indeed, and we will have that match live next Sunday afternoon prior to U.S. Open tennis. Right now, let's turn, and up comes Don Whitman. Don, bring us up to date with CompuStats from the first half.
Well, Brian, in that first half, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers certainly ran away from the Calgary Stampeders, 33-6. They had a couple of opportunities to perhaps narrow the gap, but the big hit by Roy Bennett on Lewis Walker when it appeared as though Calgary was driving in, that popped the ball away, and turnovers tell much of the story. 4 by the Calgary Stampeders, fumbles and interceptions, and the Winnipeg Blue Bombers with 280 yards in total offense. Most of it through the air, 257 on the passing arms of Tom Clements and John Hufnagel, who took over in that first quarter and managed a touchdown strike to Joe Poplawski when Clements was briefly shaken up. They've hit on 13 of 21 attempts, while Joe Barnes has clicked on 8 of 15. But turnovers have been the Stampeders' undoing through the first 30 minutes of this football game. Our halftime show will continue after this match.
Don Whitman and Ron Lancaster.
Boy, that was some hit you put on Lewis Walker. Tell us about the play.
Well, we was in a zone defense, and the back came out of the backfield, and I pick up first back coming out, and quarterback led him. He really didn't see me, and I just gave him my best shot.
You put a couple of good shots on people in the first half. The hit on Walker, and then on the third down punt where you came in on J.T. Hay to pop the ball loose.
Well, they snapped the ball high, and I heard a clear shot at him. No one picked me up, and I just gave him a good shot, and the ball came free. There was a mad scramble for it. I just didn't get a chance to get the ball. That's the only thing I hate about it.
Roy, you have something of an unusual technique in defending against pass receivers. You watch their eyes more than anything else, don't you, when you're running downfield with them?
Right. I try to keep my eyes right on their eyes, and when their eyes light up, I try to pop my head back around for the ball, and it's worked so far this year, and I've been getting away with it, so I'm going to continue to try to stick with it.
Well, you've had a good first half, continued success in the second.
Okay, thank you.
Ron?
Well, we want to talk about the play that Bennett was talking about. I know he said he watches the eyes. I would have liked to have seen the eyes of Lewis Walker when he turned and saw Bennett. But what happens is normally at the goal line, when he comes out in the flat, it has to be somebody in here that covers him. But the Bombers changed the defense on him, and now we'll see the result. Normally, a linebacker is chasing the back out in the flat. The backer starts out, and he drops off. And you see Roy Bennett come up and just pop him. And, boy, what a play for the Bombers at that particular time, because Calgary's trying to get back in. Here it is. And now, just as he turns around, Roy Bennett is just waiting on him. And that is a heck of a surprise for anybody. You know, they usually say what you don't see won't hurt you. Well, that's not always true in football.
Well, Roy Bennett popped that ball away from Lewis Walker. At the time, it was 21-6, Winnipeg leading. It looked as though Calgary was going in for a touchdown, and that would totally have changed the complexion of the game.
Well, I think so. Anytime you keep that team out of that end zone, and then they took it and marched down the field and score, that's a 14-point turnaround, so it's 33-6 instead of possibly 7 or 8 point difference. So your bet is a big turnaround for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers.
Squad this afternoon.
Well, he said in the opening he wanted a little more effort from that defense up front, and he got it today. I was trying to watch him see if Mike Riley goes out and see if his dad shakes hands with him.
Well, Bud Riley, the head coach of the Calgary Stampeders, now sees his record at 1-1. Joe Poplawski with 2 touchdowns this afternoon, talking to Pat Clayton, who for a number of years looked after many of the hurts that Poplawski picked up when Clayton was the athletic therapist with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Cal Murphy is now down on the sidelines. Coach, congratulations. You have to be very pleased, not only with the win, but the effort of the defensive unit.
Yeah, they really put out a good effort. There's no question about that. And It's a good thing they did. We had some trouble picking up their stunts, and we just couldn't handle it. That's all it was to it.
In the games that I've seen you play this year, Cal, I thought that was the best overall performance by a defensive unit that I've seen from him. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I don't think there's any question about that, Ron. I think it was.
Cal, do you think the guys might have a little fun looking at the videotape tomorrow with that hit of Lewis Walker by Roy Bennett?
Man, alive, that was some hit, wasn't it? I'll tell you what. He came up with another big one. He seems to keep coming up with the big ones, and it saved our bacon there, I'll tell you that.
I think that also, Cal, when you look at the films, you'll see a great hit by Jeff Boyd on John Bonk on that run of Murphy's. I think you get a few chuckles out of that.
I don't think there's any question about that. I think they both knew it. They were kind of laughing at each other on the ground. I know Jeff certainly was. Anyhow, I don't know if John was.
Coach, what about injuries? We saw Chris Baldy with a nice bag on the knee. Any major problems?
Well, we've got a knee problem there. I don't know the extent of it. It's sore right down the front of it right now. And then Pat Langdon also got a knee problem and or an ankle problem, and he didn't finish the game either. And he started losing offensive linemen. It's kind of tough.
What was the problem with Clements in the first quarter when he took the ball in that third down quarterback sneak?
He got hit in the funny bone. Well, we guess it wasn't so funny.
It was funny to everybody else. But, you know, once again, Cal, it shows that with Huffnagel and Clements, you got two guys that could probably start anywhere in this league, and you're very fortunate to have them.
Yeah, we sure are. You know, John came in and didn't miss a beat and took us in to score. And it was, you know, when you can do that, you're very fortunate.
Well, Cal, you've got a tough game coming up next Sunday against the Saskatchewan Roughriders.
Yeah, I'm glad we don't see Randy Troutman again. I hope they don't have any more people like that over there.
Well, the Saskatchewan Roughriders, I think, will be ready after their victory over the Edmonton Eskimos Friday night. And we'll be back with our Carling O'Keefe Game Stars right after this. Well, the choices were tough this afternoon, but we decided on Joe Poplawski and Stan Mikolas. And Joe, first of all, tell us about that touchdown catch you made in the first quarter on that third down gamble.
Well, it's basically a flood pattern where we send three receivers to one side, and we cross them up a little bit in that I don't think that the linebacker was sure as to whether he should cover me or not, so I was fortunate enough to get open in the end zone and lucky enough to catch the ball.
Well, we'll show you that play now. And were you primarily the #1 target, or was it Cantner?
Well, it's either Pat Cantner or myself. On short yardage, it's basically Pat Cantner, and I think everybody flooded over to see Pat, and I was wide open, so Huffer threw the ball very well.
It looked to me like you had sprung open like at about the 3-yard line, and then Huff got the read that they had, you know, turned you completely loose, and it looked like it took forever for that ball to get there.
Yeah, exactly. Huffer told me when I came off the field that they had made a mistake in the coverages and that I was open nice and early, and I should have looked a little bit earlier, but once again, I was fortunate enough to get the ball.
Have you scored any of them any easier than the one in the second quarter off the fake hitch?
Well, I tell you what, after I batted down those two previous to that, I was a little bit concerned when I saw the ball up in the air coming my way, but you're right, Ron. I don't think I have scored one easier than that. We've been running basically a hitch screen pattern, and it had been quite successful to both Jeff and James Murphy, and then we faked that hitch screen, and I just went in behind everybody, and I believe our fullback was wide open on that play also, and Tom could just pick and choose, and he threw it my way.
Well, he did. I know this much. Knowing from Tom's point of view, he doesn't care. He was glad you caught it because you know what Tom's saying. He's so far open, if I underthrow it, I'll never live it down.
Well, I came off the sideline, and Tom says, I knew you could catch one anyways, Joe.
Hey, you had a lot of success today against the Calgary Stampeders, finding the hole in the zone on hook patterns.
That's right. They played a lot of cover 4, and it opens up some of that deep middle stuff, and both quarterbacks were lucky enough to find Jerome, myself, and also Sean Kehoe across the middle.
Joe, let's take a look at that second touchdown you scored. You were wide open.
Yeah, you can see James Murphy back there, and you see the fullback there, Sean Kehoe or Pat Cantner, wide open, also myself along the sideline. And I was just happy to catch the ball after knocking those two down.
Joe, congratulations on being our offensive game star. Let's move over now to the defensive game star, Stan Mikolas. Stan, it seems as though your play is improving with almost every game.
Yeah, I hope it is. It's coming along, and my confidence is building, and it shows sometimes.
That front three today, we were just talking to Cal Murphy. Do you feel that would be the best game as a unit of your defense?
Well, I feel we played excellent today. they're contained by the ends and a little pressure by myself and the linebackers. We had them controlled through the whole game, and it helps. I think our front three did a remarkable job today.
Yeah, on one of the sacks in particular, it was Sturdivant, Norman, and McCowis, all three of you on top of the quarterback. That's got to be a great feeling.
Well, I tell you, that's the way it should be every game. That's what we're there for, to apply equal pressure along the line, and I feel we did that today.
Stan Nicholas and Joel Poplawski, congratulations on being chosen our Carling O'Keefe Offensive and Defensive Game Stars. The Winnipeg Blue Bombers 43-6 over the Calgary Stampeders, and now to CFL 85 Control and Brian Williams.
All right, thank you, Don Whitman. Big win for the Bombers this afternoon. Let's show you the standings. We begin with the Western Conference. Winnipeg back in sole possession of second place, 2 behind British Columbia. No change in the Eastern standings, which of course reflect Hamilton.
CFL Winnipeg blasting Calgary to the tune of 43.
CFL team for Windsor, a new arena, a science center, a stadium. Well, a year ago, these projects were in the news on a regular basis. Tonight on Focus, Percy Hadfield brings us up to date on those proposals and the people behind them.
The group is now called the Arena Stadium Science Center Feasibility Group.
Lately, they haven't been too active. They're trying to get a meeting with the new Liberal government to talk about money for another feasibility study. Armando DeLuca leads the Coliseum Task Force, the group looking into a science center and arena. Bruck Easton started the CFL committee, the group trying to get a football franchise for Windsor. And Ivan Robich is with the Dome Stadium committee. Without a stadium, you can't have a football team. There are mock-ups of a stadium kicking around, gathering dust. This one won a design award in the United States. It would house an arena, maybe even a science center. An outside wall could be used for seating for a football stadium, but it wouldn't be covered, which leaves one of the groups out in the cold. Further, Ivan Robich says a stadium is not compatible with a science center. While they disagree on many things, the two things they do agree on concern a feasibility study. They need $20,000 to make up the cost of a study, and they all say a study done 2 years ago was a waste of time and money.
It did not seem to meet the terms of reference that the committee had worked long and hard. A number of volunteers had worked long and hard on setting out terms of reference. The Woods-Gordon report, some would say, did answer the questions, the terms of reference. Others would say that it didn't. It's another report that's probably gathering dust at City Hall.
It hit numerous areas that were really unrelated to the building of a sports entertainment facility. It dealt with a trade center, arts center, downtown beautification. It just ended up not going in any one direction, in all directions, and was essentially nothing you could hang your hat on.
And Ivan Robich says the first study placed too much emphasis on locating the new facility in the downtown area.
Perhaps maybe that was an error in their part. These buildings have a tendency to be quite large in scale, require a lot of parking, and I'm not quite convinced that our downtown is large enough to accept a large building like that.
Frank Miller's conservative government rejected the request for more money for another study. Armando DeLuca says now that the Liberals are in power, things might be different.
I think that having a cabinet minister from Windsor helps. And I think Mr. Rye fits that bill. And I'm sure that he will advance arguments on behalf of our city that may or may not have been advanced prior to now.
For Bruck Easton, though, there's been another factor involved in Windsor's lack of attention. That's been a regional jealousy based in London.
Our applications for funding from the province have gone through London, and I've never had the feeling that London was too keen on seeing Windsor with a facility such as we've contemplated, a dome or whatever, or a Canadian Football League team, something they've coveted for some time.
Until the new government makes a decision, the plans are more or less on hold. Although Ivan Robich of the Stadium Development Corporation would like to get the UAW involved somehow.
After all, they have a large number of members who are going to be using facilities like this. Perhaps we might even call it, give it a name, Solidarity Dome or something, or a facility.
Robich favors Jackson Park as a possible site for the stadium. DeLuca would like to see a science center and arena built in the downtown area somewhere, and Brock Easton isn't fussy where his CFL team would play, as long as it's in Windsor. One site suggested is now occupied by the Zaleb Brothers scrapyard, but it's hard for the owners to take the idea seriously.
If the city ever came up with some kind of a sweetheart deal to give you a big land swap someplace, would you move if there was a good place to go to that would suit your needs? Serious.
Fighting Island?
No, if they could put you on the train track somewhere out, would you move from this location if the city could come up with some kind of a deal for you?
Well, I got to tell you that this is a business. Everything's for sale, and everything is everything in terms of money. You know.
Have you looked at it?
There's an old story, Percy. For money, you get honey.
Well, sir, how about a dome stadium?
Pardon me? A dome stadium?
A dome stadium on this site, maybe call it Zaleb Stadium, and you could move someplace else, maybe you could put the new Windsor's new dome stadium.
What are you going to call the one that they can't afford in Toronto?
Bill Rye has seen the scrapyard and says the environment is a high priority item with the new government. A priority not likely to be given Windsor's request for money for a feasibility study, which could well lead to a project which would never be built without millions of dollars from all levels of government. Percy Hatfield, CBC News.
Tonight, the BC Lions defeated the hometown Ottawa Rough Riders by a score of 18-13.
Lions quarterback Roy DeWalt got the BC offense in gear early as Jim Sandusky snags this one past the outstretched Lamont Meacham. Sandusky rambles 50 yards to put the Lions up 7-0. On Ottawa's next possession, Michael Gray tips a J.C. Watts pass, and Kevin Konar snares it as BC was back in business. DeWalt wasted little time as he ends a short drive with this 15-yard Sandusky square out to the left. Lions now ahead 14-0. The rest of the half turned out to be a defensive struggle as BC had an 18-3 lead going into the locker room. We pick it up late in the third quarter as BC coughs up the ball to an alert Ricky Barton as Ottawa gets it. On the ensuing 31-yard drive, former Argo Lester Brown punches it in from inside the one as Ottawa now trails at 18-10. After the kickoff, the Lions again turn it over as Michel Bourgeot picks off a Duarte pass to set up a field goal, making it BC 18, Ottawa 13.
And in Ontario Junior Football tomorrow evening at 7 o'clock at Windsor Stadium, it will be the AKO Fratmen taking on Hamilton in Ontario.
On August 23rd at Commonwealth Stadium in Edmonton, the Eskimos and the Rough Riders played one of the most exciting games of the 1985 season. But despite the heroics of quarterback Matt Dunnigan, who ran for 128 yards and fired 3 touchdown strikes, 2 of which wound up in the hands of wide receiver Brian Kelly, the Eskimos were losers. The stars of the Saskatchewan win were people like Denny Ferdinand, who carried 4 times for 79 yards and scored a touchdown. Quarterback Homer Jordan, who had his best game as a professional, completing 25 of 34 pass attempts. And running back Craig Ellis, who scored 3 touchdowns. The Rough Riders outlasted the Eskimos 42-34. And this afternoon at Taylor Field in Regina, we look for a similar brand of excitement as the teams hook up in the rematch. Hi, everybody. A very important game for both teams. But Homer Jordan will not be the starting quarterback. He's relegated to a backup role this afternoon as Joe Pow draws the starting assignment. Leo Cahill, does this come as anything of a surprise?
Well, not knowing Jocko, it doesn't come as a surprise, but you know they make 8 different kinds of Jell-O because a lot of people have a lot of opinions. My opinion is they should have started the young quarterback and instructed him to go in there and do everything he could do to tire out that Edmonton team that first half. Run sideline to sideline, use his backs, do anything he could do, and tell the defense you got to play it extremely well because you got your young quarterback in there. And then the second half, put your veteran in, Pow, and tell Pow, get the job done. And he can get the job done, too. But regardless what happens today, Ron, I think the onus is going to be on both defenses.
Well, there's never any doubt about that. Defense is what's going to win the football game for either side. But I think the pressure's on the Saskatchewan Rough Rider defense. They like to line up 3 down linemen, but I think you're going to see Billy Jackson and Jeff Roberts have to come from those outside linebacker positions to contain Matt Dunnigan. In my opinion, Matt Dunnigan is the outstanding offensive player in the CFL this year. He's second in passing and yardage, and he's third in rushing. And I believe if you don't contain Matt Dunnigan, he will get the job done, and the Eskimos will win, Don.
Well, the Eskimos and the Rough Riders are just about set to kick it off here at Taylor Field in Regina, and we'll return. But first, let's go to CFL 85 Control and Brian Williams.
Thank you, Don. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to CFL Control in Toronto, week number 11. A good matchup, the final game of the weekend. There is one other game underway. That is at Exhibition Stadium here in Toronto. The Ticats and the Toronto Argonauts. CBC's Vic Rauter standing by live at the C&E. And Vic, bring us up to date.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, Brian. It is now late in the third quarter, just over 2 minutes to go, and it is all Hamilton Ticats. Teams in the East beware. Here come the Tiger Cats. They lead 33-3, and it's been really a story of the Hamilton defense and a lack of offense once again by the Argonauts. They really do miss injured quarterback Conridge Holloway. Ricky Turner, who looked good last week in the second half against the BC Lions, started at quarterback today, but couldn't get the offense moving, and Mike Hohensee is now at quarterback. As for the Tiger Cat defense, well, the statistics speak for themselves. 3 interceptions, 1 fumble recovery, a couple of quarterback sacks. And once they've turned the ball over, the Hamilton offense has done the job. They've gotten 4 field goals from Bernie Ruoff, 1 from 49 yards, 1 touchdown from Steve Stapler, another from Ken Hobart, and a tremendous touchdown by a newcomer by the name of Tony Champion. A late cut of the Dallas Cowboys, and this one goes for 67 yards as he beats the cornerback Brian Merrow. Tony Champion scores the touchdown, and as I say right now, it is all Hamilton Ticats as they lead 33-3 and can move into a third-place tie if they hold on to beat the Toronto Argonauts. Let's return now to CFL Control and Brian Williams.
All right, thank you, Vic. Good to have you with us this afternoon. Vic will have highlights coming up at halftime. Let's take a look at the standings. We begin with that Eastern Conference. It reflects the importance of this game. Hamilton will move into a tie with Toronto, the Western standings, and again, they show the importance of the game coming up in just a minute. Saskatchewan looking to tie Edmonton. Calgary won last night. The Blue Jays are winning big in New York. It's just about all over. They lead the Yankees 6-0. At halftime, we'll update the scores and profile Edmonton quarterback Matt Dunnigan. Up next, the opening kickoff as CFL 85 continues. Welcome back to CFL Control in Toronto. Coming up, we will have highlights of Hamilton's big win over the Toronto Argonauts. Vic Rauter standing by at Exhibition Stadium to talk with Hamilton coach Al Bruno, and Chris Cuthbert in Edmonton will profile Eskimos quarterback Matt. And with a profile of the outstanding Eskimos quarterback, as promised, here is Chris Cuthbert.
The Edmonton Eskimo dynasty days are over, but their rich tradition of great quarterbacks continues. Jackie Parker, Tom Wilkinson, Warren Moon, and now, Matt Dunnigan.
Dunnigan with time, throwing deep for Kelly. Touchdown!
Dunnigan is into his 3rd year with the Green and Gold, 2nd as the starting quarterback, and he's blossomed into one of the CFL's exciting new stars.
I don't consider myself a star. I consider myself another member of a professional football team. But you can't help be thrown in the limelight when you're playing quarterback, and I try to handle it as best I can. And like I said, I just try to be myself and try to be down to earth and let people know that, hey, you know, I'm Matt Dunnigan. I'm a regular guy just like you are.
Dunnigan has played his way out of the shadow of 2 other stars, Warren Moon in Edmonton, and in his collegiate days, Terry Bradshaw at Louisiana Tech.
I was in contact with Terry Bradshaw all 4 years that I was at Louisiana Tech. And he talked to me, and he gave me some advice in different situations, and it helped me. When I played behind Warren Moon here my first year, I tried to tap as much knowledge from Warren as I possibly could, and I think in those situations, it's got to help when you're playing behind quarterbacks like that.
Dunnigan learned well, last year being named the Eskimos nominee as outstanding player, filling a void at quarterback that many felt would be a problem spot with the departure of Moon to the NFL.
Matt was probably a little further along after Warren left here than maybe some people realized. He didn't get to play very much when Matt was here, but he was always a student and always trying to learn, and he's still the same way. He works very hard at his job and really tries to break down defenses and work on them during the week on film and get all these reads down, and he's a real hard worker, you know, on and off the field.
I want to be the best, of course. I think when you're playing a sport, any sport, you know, you always want to strive to be the best that you possibly can. And I feel that I haven't reached my potential yet as a quarterback in the CFL.
Matt Dunnigan is already close to being the best in the CFL. He's among the statistical leaders in all quarterbacking categories in the league and is the CFL's 3rd leading rusher. but perhaps his greatest accomplishment was taking over the leadership roles here in Edmonton without causing any dissension among the veteran players.
When he gets on the field, he's got the attitude of a linebacker or of a running back. The way he runs with the football, you know, he just doesn't slide in after the first down and run out of bounds. He drops his helmet and shoulder pads and gives somebody a good shot on the way down. That's the type of individual he is, and that's the type of competitor he is, and that's how he leads. He leads by example.
Sometimes he'd get hit and dazed and this sort of thing, and it just sort of made him even better, you know, fighting his way through adversity and this sort of thing. And that's the kind of guy that, you know, you really need at the helm of a football club. Also, he's not aloof like, say, Warren Moon was. Warren was very a by-himself type person, where Matt's one of the boys and everything, and it makes it a lot easier to relate to a guy like that.
And Dunnigan hopes the example he sets leads to another Grey Cup championship for the Edmonton Eskimos.
I would love to be labeled, you know, Grey Cup champions for 1985. I feel like we have the quality here to do it. It's just a matter of putting your minds to it and putting your hearts to it and having a little determination and getting the job done. I feel like we're very close. I'd love to be labeled the Grey Cup champions of 1985.
Well, as I say, Dunnigan having a big first half today. Our thanks to CBC's Chris Cuthbert in Edmonton. Stay with us. Up next, Vic Rutter updates the Ticats and the Toronto Argonauts as we continue. In Toronto, I'm Brian Williams. Been a long day for the Argonauts. Hamilton beating them 41-10. You know Harold Ballard smiling. Before checking in with Vic Rutter, let's take a look at highlights from this afternoon's game. And we pick it up. Second quarter this afternoon, Exhibition Stadium, number 4, Ken Hobart, the Hamilton quarterback, 67-yard touchdown to Tony Champion. In the second quarter with the convert, the Ticats in front 10-3. Now, still in the first half, here is Hobart, number 4. Hamilton has a good football team. Their problem was at quarterback after losing Dieter Brock. 15-yard touchdown by Hobart, 22-3 Ticats in the first half. Let's move to the third quarter. Another touchdown pass. Hobart to Steve Stapler, a former Argonaut. The route was on, 33-3 Hamilton at that point. Now in the fourth quarter, we showed you this touchdown on our update report earlier. Ken Hobart, another touchdown pass to a Canadian, former Shenley winner, the popular Rocky DiPietro. So Hamilton with a big win to move into a tie with Toronto. Vic Rutter standing by at Exhibition Stadium to talk with the head coach of the Ticats, Al Bruno.
Thank you very much, Brian. A very big win for the Hamilton Ticats, 41-10 over the Argos, and they are now tied with Toronto for that final playoff spot in the East. And head coach Al Bruno, you've got to be obviously very happy with this offense, and especially this game because you've come a long way since the beginning of the season.
Well, I'm pleased with the offense and the defense and the special teams because we played it together today. The way they were supposed to play it, they did a job. We forced the turnovers on defense. We capitalized on offense. Hobart did a great job. The defense did a great job. I thought the coaching staff did a great job in getting them ready.
We're always so quick to write you off, but you've pieced this team together. Ken Hobart, the quarterback, wasn't here at the beginning. You didn't have George Works as a running back, and now you've found somebody by the name of Tony Champion, a late cut of the Dallas Cowboys, scored a great touchdown. He can fly.
Well, Ron Ingram is also a good receiver. Champion did a great game.
But the fact is, you're building this team as you go.
Well, yes, you're right there. We can bring these good guys in. Mike McCarthy brings them in, and we work on them. They work out. But the nucleus of the team has to be our veterans to keep us going. And I said this before. If they can play the same way they did today, both ways, we're going to make it tough.
We wish you the best. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Very quickly, defense, 2 interceptions by Paul Bennett. The defense is playing exceptionally well. How's all season?
Well, we have played well all year. You're correct in that. All we wanted was some offense, and it looks like now with Hobart and Champion in there, and it looks like George made it work today. So I think we can get on a roll now.
Who knows? Another Grey Cup possibly? You never know. 41-10 the final score. Hamilton wins it. Thank you, Paul Bennett. Let's return now to Brian Williams and CFL Control.
All right, thank you, Vic Rutter. The Argonauts in big trouble. We will see the Argonauts, by the way. We'll be in Calgary for a telecast on Thanksgiving Day. Right now, Don Whitman, back to you at Taylor Field in Regina.
And at halftime, Brian, the Edmonton Eskimos lead the Saskatchewan Roughriders 14-0. A big spread there, but statistically, not really much of a difference between the two teams through 30 minutes. 13 first downs for Edmonton as opposed to 10 for the Roughriders. And in terms of total offense, 196 yards for Edmonton, 182 for Saskatchewan. as Joe Powpow and Homer Jordan have passed for 4 more yards than Matt Dunnigan, but he has completed a greater percentage of his passes, hitting on 13 of 17. The halftime score, 14-0, Edmonton leading Saskatchewan. We'll be back after.
Such it be in a blitz defense, and we ran a play that's pretty good usually if we get a couple of blocks on the play, but you know, Matt had to rush the throw, and Milson made an unbelievable catch. I still don't know how he caught the ball, and once he caught it, of course, and got turned upfield, he got by some people and then scored the touchdown. It was a big play because we were having trouble stopping the Roughies in that last quarter.
Jack, I thought an encouraging thing today for your football team was that you were stopped down there on 3rd down in a critical situation. Then you made an error on a offside situation that could have got you in trouble. But very undauntedly, your football team stayed together and took the ball down the field and drove in for a touchdown. That's the makings of a good football team.
Well, Leo, I hope you're right, because the guys really do think that they can do things like that and take some chances and get away with it. That's the type of team they are, so that's the way we try to play.
Jack, did you do anything differently defensively today? Your defense played, I thought, extremely well today against the Saskatchewan offense. Did you do anything differently?
Well, we played the last 2 ball games defensively pretty well, and we probably played a little bit more consistent today than we have been, but I know the Saskatchewan guys were really hitting out there, and our guys were too. I haven't seen 2 teams this year really hit people as hard as they did today. There was a lot of bruises.
Jackie Parker, congratulations on your 27-15 victory, and we'll return to Taylor Field in Regina and our Carling O'Keefe offensive and defensive. Carling O'Keefe offensive game star, Milson Jones. Defensively, Gary Thompson. Milson, a great 60-yard run for a touchdown to seal the fate of the Saskatchewan Roughriders. How did you feel about your overall play? I thought it was perhaps one of your best games of the year.
Oh, I definitely think so. You know, their defense took away our run. They were doing some stunts on the outside, and we were trying to get off tackle, and we just couldn't do it. So we started relying on the short dump offs to the backs in the shorter game.
Have you ever been in a football game where you were that much the receiver as you were today, Millicent?
Oh, no, but I hope to be in a lot more like that.
Milton, the move to Edmonton seems to have really agreed with you. What do you attribute that to?
Well, I don't know. You know, I think I just need to get away from Winnipeg, hometown and all, but I'm up in Edmonton, and pressure's off a little bit, you know. And I like it up there, you know. They treated me real well, and hopefully I can return some of the favor they've done for me.
Well, you certainly treated them well this afternoon with that 60-yard run. How would you like to describe this play for us as we take a look at it?
Well, it's a quick screen, you know, to linebacker rushes. We just look right away, and that was just a lucky grab, I think. And I just saw Suter come across, and I thought I could get inside of him, and I was just going for the end zone, and I looked over, saw the cornerback coming, so I said, oh, geez, the monkey got on my back a little bit.
Well, it was a 60-yard run for a touchdown to make it 27-15. Now let's move over to the defensive game star, Gary Thompson. Gary, 2 interceptions that really took some of the heart out of the Rough Riders to start that 3rd quarter.
Yeah, I felt that, you know, if I could go out there and play the corner and kind of shut down the receivers that they had, you know, we could take some of the smoke out of them.
Gary, you look like you enjoy the corner better than playing inside, do you?
Yeah, I think it's my natural position. You know, I came up, my first year here was in '82, and played the corner, and then this last year they moved me, actually this year they moved me in the inside, where, you know, I learned the inside position, but I feel playing on that corner is my home. But, you know, not to take anything from Darryl Hall, because I think he's a heck of a ball player, and not only that, home boy.
Gary had an outstanding ball game. Congratulations on being chosen our defensive game star. Milson Jones, congratulations on being picked our Carling O'Keefe offensive game star. The Eskimos, 27-15 winners. Let's go to CFL 85 Control and Brian Williams.
Field in Regina.
27-15 the score in favor of Edmonton. Statistically, 392 yards. Edmonton ahead of Saskatchewan's 366. But a very impressive statistic, 24 of 29, Matt Dunnigan completing 82.7% of his passes. Turnovers did the Saskatchewan Roughriders in as well, as they gave the ball away 4 times.
Well, I was glad to see Milson Jones win that thing as the outstanding offensive player today. He just did a sensational job, made big play after big play. But, Ron, when it comes right down to it, as this Edmonton team goes, so goes Matt Dunnigan, and he's going to be one of the real superstars of the future.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. He took advantage of a lot of things. I think one thing they need to work on is their short yardage offense. But, as you said, Don, turnovers today cost the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Good teams will take advantage of turnovers, and they did.
Well, it seemed as though the Rough Riders might have had something going to start the third quarter. They get the great return on the kickoff, and then the interception snuffs out the drive.
I think one thing we got to remember, too, this afternoon is that Edmonton had a great kicking game. They got great punting this afternoon. They've got a couple of key field goals, and that's important.
And the Edmonton Eskimos, with the win, improve their record to 6 wins and 4 losses as they defeat the Saskatchewan Rough Riders 27-15. Now to CFL 85 control, and once again, Brian Williams.
All right, thank you, Don Whitman. There you see the final score. Let's show you the conference standings, and we begin with the Western Conference. Edmonton now 4 points in front of Saskatchewan, within 4 of BC and Winnipeg. Just a reminder, next Sunday we'll have the game, Saskatchewan at Winnipeg. And we take a look at the Eastern standings, and they change. Don't forget the Ottawa Rough Riders were dumped by the Stampeders in Calgary last night. The Rough Riders now by 2 points over both Toronto and Hamilton. We showed you the highlights. Hamilton winning big here in Toronto this afternoon. Once again, the Blue Jays win and the Expos lose. I'm Brian Williams. So long, everyone, from CFL 85 Control in Toronto.
And it looks like now with Hobart and Champion in there, and looks like George made it work today. So I think we can get on a roll now.
Who knows? Another Grey Cup possibly? You never know. 41-10 the finals.
Welcome back to CFL Control in Toronto. Big lead for Winnipeg at the half. Coming, that was at Ivor Wynne Stadium in Hamilton. The Ticats defeating the Ottawa Rough Riders 32-11. In the second quarter, Hamilton is on the move. This is Ken Hobart to the former Shenley Award winner Rocky DiPietro. His second touchdown of the game. Hobart's third touchdown pass. At the half, 25-11 Hamilton. Here's all the scoring in the second half. Early in the third quarter, the Rough Riders punt. Rufus Crawford, some fine moves and excellent blocking. Remember, Leo Cahill said, give them a quarterback. They're going to be dangerous. A 75-yard touchdown. Hamilton defeats the Ottawa Rough Riders 32-11. They're tied with Ottawa for second place. And remember, last week, of course, Hamilton came into Toronto and had that big win over the Argonauts. Still to come, Ron Lancaster talks with Jack Galat, and we will analyze the first half. The CFL 85 continues. Canadian football is Saskatchewan's Jack Galat. His professional career has spanned 3 decades and 3 professional leagues. 3 times he has been named CFL Coach of the Year. Jack is currently the 41st head coach of the Saskatchewan Rough Riders. Here is Jack in conversation with our Ron Lancaster.
Jack, you're the head coach in Ottawa, Birmingham, Calgary, and now Saskatchewan. Everywhere you've gone, it's been a rebuilding process. That seems to be, just looking back on your career, everywhere you've had to rebuild a team. Is that your strength, rebuilding a football team?
Well, I guess in a way, you know, I think like at one point in time was like you hear the word challenge, and I don't think that I'm looking for any more challenges. I think sometimes you got to be a little wacko to do it and everything, but I think maybe I fit the bill for that, you know. But I felt that there was a chance to come here around here, like some other places that I don't know. And I think that going down to the World Football League after winning a championship in Ottawa in '73, and I think that that was kind of a crazy year for me. In other words, our club had gone 0-4 at the start of the '73 football season, and I remember that the "Go to Gotta Go" signs were on everybody's bumper in the city and everything like that. I got hung in effigy in both languages, in Ottawa and in Hull, and then we turned it around and won the championship. When I had an opportunity to go down to the World Football League for a lot of money, I took that chance, and I enjoyed that because everybody started from scratch, and I kind of like to know that sometime. If everybody starts from scratch, how you might do, and we really did really well, and I enjoyed that stay down there for a while.
You had many peaks and valleys, I guess. Yeah. I mean, you've been Coach of the Year, you've won Grey Cups, you've been let go in Calgary and all that other junk. Has there been any sort of a disappointment for you in football, other, you know, regardless of championships and all the awards and stuff, disappointments that you feel are disappointments?
Well, I think that maybe the greatest disappointment I had, maybe from a football standpoint, of an operating standpoint, was after the '79 season that we were 12-4 and we got beat out in the fourth quarter by Edmonton. They had a good football team, and we, like I said, we won 12 games that year, and I think we put over $400,000 in the bank. And then I was told at the end of the year I could take one job or the other. I had been the head coach and general manager, so I could either be one or the other. That things just weren't the way they should be there in Calgary. So I took the general manager's job because being a GM versus a coach is like being on sabbatical, you know. You know, so I mean, well, it is. But anyway, and I did that, and I did that for a couple of years, and I came back coaching and everything like that. But anyway, I felt that. But I mean, again, I think that you completely understand, like when you're in sports, that it's crazy, especially in football, you know. And I think that football, it's not a ball. It's an elliptical shaped object, and it bounces crazy, and it throws crazy, as you know, and it punts crazy and everything like that. Whatever, eh? So I think that as you wear down and as you played a long time, you see a lot of things happen as a player, and then as an assistant coach, you see a lot of things happen and everything like that, and you just keep hammering away because it's something that you really like to do. And I think that even like today, I was a little late getting over here, but I was watching a game on TV. I was watching Tennessee and UCLA play, where UCLA came back and scored 2 touchdowns, 2 8-point touchdowns, and tied a heck of a game. I'm a football freak. In other words, I'd rather have watched that one game than 5,000 baseball games or 8,000 hockey games or soccer games or golf matches and everything like that. I just wanted to stay with that game, and then I leave you to that. I'm going back to watch another one, you know. So I think that I would hope that I could give something back to the game. That's why I would like to think that if I am coaching, I want to work hard at it. I want our coaches to work hard at it, and they all do. And I'd like our players to work hard at their chosen career, but have a laugh once in a while, because they should.
Jack, you've coached a lot of players on a lot of teams, but is there one player maybe that's left some sort of a lasting impression with you?
Well, there's 2 running backs. One, Art Cantrell, was just a fierce competitor and everything like that, and I had him as a running back in Ottawa. Then when I had defected myself to the World Football League, he did too, and he played for me in Birmingham and everything. We won a championship in each place. And he was just special. His loyalties were so great and everything like that. When things got tough at either place, that he was the guy that would really rise above the whole mass. And he was one of those kind of guys that really supported the whole program. And Willie Burden. You know, Willie Burden is about as classy a guy as I've ever known. In other words, he had all those great skills as a running back and this and that, but it was his demeanor in the dressing room, the way he handled himself amongst the public and the media and everything like that, he was just a classy guy on and off the field. And those 2 guys stick out in my mind maybe a little bit above so many other characters and so many other great players and individuals, you know. But those 2 guys were special for special reasons.
Jack, one more question. You may not want to answer this one. But as we said, you coached a lot of players on a lot of different teams. You've had the opportunity to see all kind of characters. But who would you say is the best football player that you ever coached?
Who?
You may not even have an answer because you got to have 10 or 12 are going to jump at you. But I mean, is there one that you felt, guard, a linebacker, I mean, it doesn't matter. Just one to come to mind real quick, or none?
No, geez, I think that the guy that made the greatest impact, could make the greatest impact on the team, and I was an assistant coach at Ottawa, was Russ Jackson. And of course,
a lot of people agree with
you. You know, like, and there was a guy that was not completely dedicated to the game. You know, he didn't spend the time in the film room, and I know, Ronnie, I had been an assistant coach here for a few years, and I know the dedication you had to the game. I went down there with Frank, Claire, and Russ Jackson, and he would come in, he was a teacher or a school administrator or whatever, and he'd come in with his shirt and tie and everything like that, and in 30 minutes he was like Superman getting out of the phone booth. You know, he got out of his locker and he's into his uniform, and it just seemed like he could get it done on the field. He could just lift the team with his great athletic abilities and everything. I've seen other great athletes like the Vic Washingtons and those kind of guys that we had at Ottawa.
Yes.
And there was other great players, like I mentioned, about like the Willie Burden and everything. But I think that if you were to start a franchise in the CFL, and you could have one young athlete in his prime of his life to turn you around and make you a winner, and there was a Canadian guy who was playing the high-profile position as a quarterback, and that'd probably be the guy. George Reed. Hey, I don't want to leave.
George wasn't bad.
Yeah, and I don't want to leave that because
last, right?
when I think about George Reed, you know, and like people, you know, and we had such a great time here on our 75th anniversary of football here in this province. George is one of those guys that they carry the ball 35 and 40 times. Everybody knew he was going to get it, and he'd take the pounding they did, come back and back and back and everything like that. And the way you guys made it easy for the rest of us, you know, that was a great thing, Ronnie, you and Georgie.
Relate the pressures. How much pressure was there on a head coach of a CFL football team and working last year in the television booth. Compare the pressures of the two jobs.
Ronnie, you and me are a couple of the easy riders of the world, you know.
I'll tell you something, you people in Saskatchewan, without question, the best football fans in this country. Be patient. You've got a good combination with Jack and Bill Quinter. We'll be right back after this. On Lancaster, excellent interview with Jack Galat. Let's return it to yourself and our good buddy Leo Cahill in Winnipeg.
Well, the score back here at Winnipeg Stadium is 25-3. And, Ron, you know, there's one thing that you can't do against the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and that's have mental lapses like the Saskatchewan Roughriders had early in that ball game, because Tommy Clements is going to get you, right?
Well, he's been doing it for so many years. There's no reason to stop now, and a good football team like Winnipeg will take advantage of it, and they did it right away. A fumble by Craig Ellis on the opening kickoff sets up the first touchdown. Let's take a look. Here's the two keys right here. The outside guy, Mike Robinson, on the right end, makes a tremendous block, and then Mark Morris pulls to lead it around the end. A good fake to Willard Reeves. Here's the reverse. Robinson makes the block. Morris gets out in front, shields McDermott. Easy touchdown, and the Bombers are on the board.
Yeah. The telestrator didn't work too good on that, but we're going to see another angle on this. The pitch out back to Boyd, and Morris, as you say, gets out there in front and just gets enough of leather on that defensive back. Boyd goes into the end zone, gets the touchdown.
And Jeff Boyd is certainly performing much better than your video writer this afternoon, Ron. 2-touchdown performance.
The video writer could end up in section 46. Yeah.
The Winnipeg Blue Bombers preparing to kick. They have played one more game than the Lions, but each team now has 18 points. Winnipeg with a 9-2 record, British Columbia at 9-1.
Well, it's, you know, we've been saying it all year, you know, the back-to-back series with those two clubs, and it's getting closer every week and more important every week.
Well, Cal Murphy has to be extremely pleased with the way his troops have performed in compiling a 7-game unbeaten string. They lost their opening game of the season to the Montreal Concordes. Then they came back to win a couple of games before losing to the Edmonton Eskimos, and their record was 2-2. But since then, they've won 7 in a row. Congratulations, Cal Murphy. Another impressive display by your team.
Thanks, Don. It looked like it was going to be tough for a while, but we just managed to keep pecking away and getting points.
Cal, you know, from now on, when you're going to do one of these little tricks of yours and these, you know, the short kicks and the fake punch, could you turn around and signal us up here so we would know it's coming?
I don't know. It was never really executed very well, and, you know, they've been running out of there earlier or something, you know, with their cross blocking, and it worked very well.
Cal, I thought watching the ball game that Mark Morris did an excellent job filling in there for John Bonk, and I know that was the source of interest to you and concern before the ball game that you could move somebody in there in Bonk's place, but he did a great job.
Yeah, he really did. Mark Morris is an amazing person. I'll tell you, he prepares himself very studiously during the week, and you know, he spends extra hours in the film room, and you know, I know that he doesn't start there, but we have confidence that when he goes in the ball game, he's going to do a job for us.
Cal, I'm going to put you on the spot. You've got James Wild West in camp now. Can you break up a winning combination?
We'll wait and see what happens after today.
Can your defense play any better than they have in the past 2 or 3 games? They're awesome, aren't they?
Well, they played very well, and I think the biggest thing that we had today was that we came up tough when we had to, you know, when we got into our own end of the field and kept them out of the end zone, and even like when we stripped the ball off the receiver there just at the end of the ball game and recovered the fumble.
49-3. Congratulations, Cal Murphy. I know you're anxious to get to the dressing room, and we'll return to the stadium in Winnipeg and our Carling O'Keefe offensive and defensive game stars after this. And our selections this afternoon: Jeff Boyd offensively, Gary Moten defensively. Congratulations, gentlemen. Jeff, 10 receptions, 196 yards, 2 touchdowns. You put on some moves on Andre Francis today.
Yeah, well, with the injury to James Murphy, I'm forced to carry a little bit more of the load. So I was pretty prepared today. Andre Francis is a good cornerback, and I'm pretty exhausted right now, so it's been a hard day's work.
Jeff, we made a comment that after you scored that touchdown on the reverse that you thought you were a running back. Where'd you come up with all those running moves later in the game?
I don't know. The reverse is a play that we've come up with lately to get us a few extra yards. So it's something to throw the defenses off a little bit. They're trying to key on Willard, so I'm able to carry the ball for a few yards. And right here's the reverse. And Willard really sucks everybody in. And Tom pitches me the ball, and it's really just easy from right there because Andre Francis is on James Murphy, so nobody on.
And actually, Mark Moores came out to throw a pretty good block as well. And we've got a touchdown reception as you really put on some good moves to get to the end zone in this one.
Yeah, well, I credit our offense. I got a few downfield blocks, and I was able to get into the end zone.
I know you mentioned before, Jeff, something about James Murphy. It appeared to me that he wasn't himself out there today, and you feel that he was just used as kind of a decoy out there and all the burden was on you?
In a sense, James is a great receiver, and I think defenses have a lot of respect for him. So just the fact that he was out there, he knew that he wasn't 100%, but he really sacrificed coming out and playing today, and I really respect him for that.
Well, let's move over to our defensive game star, Gary Moten. You came up with a big interception, Gary. How did you feel about your effort today?
Well, I thought it was very good in that, you know, I just started playing outside, and I'm still learning it, and be able to come in and do the things I did today, I thought was very good.
We're going to have a look at your play here on the interception. Maybe you can tell us about it.
Well, actually, I was supposed to snug, but the receiver went, and I just went with him, and the ball came my way, and I caught him.
Well, you had a little tip drill on that play. Do you practice that very much in practice?
Not really. It's just something, you know, as a football player, you kind of just catch on to as you go along.
Well, Gary Moten and Jeff Boyd, I know you're anxious to get to the dressing room. Congratulations on being chosen our Carling O'Keefe defensive and offensive game stars and on your 49-3 victory over the Saskatchewan Roughriders. And now let's go to CFL 85 Control and Brian Williams.
Thank you, Don Whitman. In just a minute, we'll show you highlights of the Hamilton Ticats' second big win in a row. They defeat the Ottawa Roughriders today, 32-11. We'll talk baseball. Blue Jays lose to Milwaukee. That is the trainer. And this afternoon, CBC's Vic Rutter talks with one of the very best, Toronto Argonauts head trainer Freddie Dunbar.
Meet Fred Dunbar, trainer for the Toronto Argonauts. Fred has been with the Argos since 1976, and for the past 9 years has taken care of all the bumps, bruises, cuts, and breaks the Argos have had along the way. His association with the team takes in a great number of duties, and I asked him about the role he plays in the team's preparation for a game.
Okay, well, the first part of the day would be treatments, and that's what we're doing now. We treat for about an hour and a half. After we treat them, we get them ready for the practice, and we tape them and get them put on the preventive tape, also preventive padding if it's necessary, and get the practice rolling. The equipment manager makes sure he's got everything rolling, and then from there we go to practice.
Now, treatments are one of the most important parts of Fred's job, and Dunbar believes very strongly in something called cryotherapy.
Ice is probably the #1 item which we use as a modality. Ice is used, I'd say 90% with my methods of treating. There's a lot of different methods in which you can use, but here with the Toronto Argonauts, we use a lot of cryotherapy. Then we have muscle stimulators here, which we use. The ultrasound. Ultrasound is a unit which would give deep heat into, instead of giving surface heat, we can give the deeper heat, goes in maybe an inch or so into the muscle, where if someone had a Charlie horse or any type of abrasion that would happen during the game.
However, Fred's job doesn't end at the training table in the locker room. During the game, he and his assistant trainer, Kevin Duguay, work the sidelines, giving attention to any injured players. And I asked him to describe his sideline duties.
On the field, we try and watch the game so we can see how the injury occurred. And this will help us a lot at the time. You know, we got many eyes out there, but we're not going to be able to see every injury. But basically, we're there for emergency care. First thing that we would do is to find out whether the athlete can walk or if he can move and get up. If he's unconscious, then we're in trouble. If the athlete can't get up and walk, then we either bring the ambulance on the field or we'll bring some sort of a mobile unit in which we can take the athlete off. So my assistant and I will go to the field, bring the athlete to the sideline. My assistant then will stay on the sideline in case another injury occurs immediately. Then he's able to go out onto the field again. Then the doctors and I will then look at the injury, determine whether or not the athlete can stay in the game or he can be, or he can't stay in the game. Then we go to the coaches, the head coach and the positional coach, and tell them what the situation is, and we carry on from there.
Of course, it's very important for the players to have trust in Fred, and you know, maybe that trust is gained in the way that Dunbar runs his training room.
I try and keep it a casual affair within the training room. They have enough pressure from the media, from the coaches, from their own wives, girlfriends. So when they come into the training room, I want a good casual relationship and a good rapport between me and the athlete. Because if they're scared to tell me things, that something's wrong with them, then we've defeated our purpose. I'm the boss, and there's no question about it. And if they get out of hand, I have this whip.
You're the boss, Freddie. Coming up, Don, we'll show you highlights of the Ticats win, and we'll talk baseball. But right now, let's go back to you in Winnipeg for a final word on today's game.
And statistically, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers had as big an edge as they did on the scoreboard. 49-3 the final score, 447 yards to 272 for the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Gentlemen, those Blue Bombers look very strong, don't they?
They're going to be tough as it gets cold out here in the fall, Ron.
They got it going their way, Don.
Okay, 49-3 the final score. Let's go for more sports to CFL 85 Control and Brian Williams.
All right, thank you, Don Whitman. As promised, we're going to show you highlights from the game played earlier this afternoon in Hamilton. The Hamilton Ticats defeating the Ottawa Roughriders by a score of 32-11. And we pick it up in the first quarter. Number 4, Ken Hobart, the Canadian Rocky DiPietro, former Shenley Award winner. The Ticats would never look back. We move to the second quarter. Here is Hobart again, 25 years of age, out of the University of Idaho. Beautiful touchdown pass to Steve Statler. It was 18-4. The Ticat fans had something to cheer about. The Ottawa Roughriders get their only touchdown of the day. Short run by Timmy McRae out of Tulane in the second quarter. Here is Hobart still in the second quarter. Third touchdown pass, second to Rocky DiPietro. 25-11 for the Hamilton Ticats at halftime. Now, the only scoring in the second half came very early in the third quarter. The Roughriders are punting. Rufus Crawford bringing the crowd of just over 16,000 to its feet at Ivor Stadium. A couple of nice moves, some fine blocking. A 75-yard punt return for the touchdown. It was 32-11, and that's the way it wound up this afternoon. And we take a look at the Eastern standings. The Hamilton Ticats now dropping Toronto into last place. Let's show you the Western standings. Great race between Winnipeg and BC.
8 days ago in Montreal's Olympic Stadium, the BC Lions were trailing the Concordes by a couple of touchdowns in the third quarter. But thanks to running like this from quarterback Roy DeWalt, which he doesn't do often, the offense that hadn't scored a touchdown in 10 quarters was about to come alive. It gained momentum when DeWalt got time to pass. And when he does that, stopping the small but speedy wide receiver Jim Sandusky can be very difficult indeed. Containing Merv Fernandez can be downright impossible when the Lions are rolling. And roll they did on this night. 31-20 over the Eastern leaders, the Montreal Concordes. Tonight in BC Place Stadium, the Lions will be gunning for their 10th win of the season and sole possession of first in the West with a win over the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Hi, everyone. It's good to have you with us. The Lions are 9-1 against the Saskatchewan Roughriders 4-7. But before you write off the Riders, keep one thing in mind. Only 3 teams in regular season have beaten the Lions here at BC Place Stadium. And Saskatchewan were one of those teams last season. The BC Lions aren't going with a pat hand in this one. They have made a key change on defense. Kevin Konar will replace Ty Cruz as the starting middle linebacker, and Bernie Gleer will take Konar's position as the rover. And Ronnie, the Saskatchewan Roughriders and Jack Goda have also made some changes.
Yeah, and talking to Jack Goda today, I get the distinct impression that if they don't play better tonight, there's going to be a whole lot of changes made for next week. But anyhow, on the defensive line, Steve Wilburn, the defensive end they obtained from Calgary, moves into Rick Moore's position. They're looking for him to get to DeWalt a little bit. Scott Reddle gets the opportunity to play the nose, and in the secondary, Jitter Fields goes on the roster instead of Andre Francis. Eddie Ray Walker back to the corner. Offensively, only one change. Tracy Henderson, a guy they're really high on and think has all the ability in the world, and they're looking for a big game for him tonight, is on as the flanker position in Stephen Jones's position.
We're looking for a good one. The Lions against the Saskatchewan Roughriders. We're moments away from the opening kickoff here at BC Place Stadium. But right now, let's go to Brian Williams and CFL 85 Control. Brian?
Thank you, Steve. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to CFL 85 Control here in Toronto. Saskatchewan and the BC Lions tonight. We take a look at the standings, beginning with that Western Conference. The BC Lions still in a first-place tie as Winnipeg and the Shocker losing here in Toronto last night. Edmonton has the weekend off. We see the East. Toronto is now tied with that win with Hamilton and Ottawa. Don't forget, tomorrow afternoon, 1:30 Eastern, Leo Cahill and Don Whitman will have Ottawa and Montreal. It has been a very busy day in Major League Baseball. Let's have a look at the division races, beginning with the American League. Toronto winning in Milwaukee. The Yankees beat Baltimore. Highlights from last night. George McClain will have national news. Up next, the opening kickoff, the CFL 85.
Join our CBC sports crew.
Good afternoon from our nation's capital city, Ottawa, as CBC Sports presents CFL 85. These Parliament buildings and the House of Commons saw troubled times for the Tories this past week. Heated debates and a briefcase full of controversy were the order of business for the Conservatives. However, there will be no debate in Ottawa concerning the plight of the Rough Rider football team. They desperately need a win. 4 losses in their last 4 games have shaken Ottawa's once firm grasp on second place. And today, they face a formidable foe in the Eastern Division leading Montreal Concordes. Changes were made in Prime Minister Mulroney's cabinet this week, and the same holds true for the Rough Riders. With more on that, here's Leo Cahill at Lansdowne Park.
Thanks, Don. We're expecting the largest crowd of the season here this afternoon, and the Ottawa fans hope to see a new look from their football club. Earlier this week, the Rough Riders engineered a 6-player swap with the Saskatchewan Rough Riders. The biggest name in the exchange went to Regina wide receiver Derek Zeno, who's leading the CFL in punt returns with 592 yards, but apparently fell into disfavor with the Ottawa coaching staff. Import defensive tackle Gary Lewis and Canadian defensive back Junior Robinson also went west, while the newcomers for Ottawa are Canadian running back Robert Reed and import wide receiver Stephen Jones and linebacker Jeff Roberts. Montreal also made a trade, sending rover Preston Young to the Argonauts in exchange for linebacker Mike Emery, who will replace the injured Ken Shanconi. So as you can see, there have been some changes made, and changes usually come when teams are losing. Also, some heat comes with losing. For example, both coaches are beginning to feel pressure from the fans and the press. Ottawa's coach, Joe Moss, is even feeling some heat from the Players Association for jostling one of his players on the sidelines in a recent game. However, a win today by either team can solve a lot of problems. And right now, let's return to Brian Williams at CFL 85 Control.
Thank you, Leo. Good afternoon, everyone. I certainly would not want to be in Joe Moss's shoes if the Rough Riders lose this afternoon. That's our first game. Our second game will come from Calgary, the Ticats and the Stampeders. With a preview from McMahon Stadium, here are Steve Armitage and Ron Lancaster.
Brian, at just over 2.5 hours from now here at McMahon Stadium in Calgary, it's the Stampeders against the Hamilton Ticats. And, Ronnie, it's a much improved Hamilton team.
Boy, it sure is. Their defense has saved them so many times this year. But Ken Hobart has finally added the dimension they were missing. That's the quarterback that gets the job done. And those Hamilton Tiger Cats right now are all set to make a run at the Eastern Division Championship.
And, of course, directing the offense for the Calgary Stampeders will be Joe Barnes. The Stampeders and Ticats 2.5 hours from now. Brian, back to you.
All right, Steve, Ron alluded to the fact that Hamilton is making a run at first place in the Eastern Conference. Let's show you the Eastern standings. A 3-way tie for second. Of course, Toronto stunned Winnipeg on Friday. In the Western Division, you saw the BC Lions last night move back into sole possession of first place, 2 points ahead of Winnipeg, Edmonton with a weekend off. Coming up on our halftime show, I'll update you on baseball. The Blue Jays' magic number is down to 4. Leo Cahill in a very special conversation with Montreal head coach Joe Galat. It's a busy afternoon. Stay with us. We'll keep you up to date. The opening kickoff is up next to CFL 85. Good afternoon again, everyone. I'm Brian Williams. Welcome to CFL Control in Toronto. The Rough Riders up by 13, and that should take some of the heat off of beleaguered Ottawa head coach Joe Moss. Coming up in just a minute, Leo Cahill in conversation with Montreal head coach Joe Galat. Let's check baseball this afternoon. Blue Jays' magic number is down to just 9 here in Toronto. Even Cal Murphy could not believe what was happening Friday night, first half at Exhibition Stadium, as Toronto quarterback Ricky Turner will keep it going for the touchdown. Heck, the Argonauts couldn't even believe it themselves. They were leading powerful Winnipeg 24-9 in the second quarter. The second half was all Blue Bombers. John Hupnagel out of Penn State to Canadian Joe Popluski. In the fourth quarter, a 47-yard touchdown. It was too late. The Argonauts hang on to win 27-24. They tie Ottawa and Hamilton for second. That's why this game you're watching is so important, and also the game coming up later today, Hamilton at Calgary. Last night, the cheerleaders and more than 41,000 had a lot to cheer at BC Place in Vancouver. Roy DeWalt, touchdown, John Pankratz, first quarter. Now, turnovers really, though, were the story. Saskatchewan had numerous turnovers, and a key player in that category is British Columbia's #1, Darnell Clash, the defensive game star. This recovery leading to a field goal. Pasaglia with 21 points in all, 6 field goals, as he surpassed 1,500 career points in his 10th season. Here is Roy DeWalt, his second touchdown pass of the game. It's a 22-yarder to Merv Fernandez. The Lions, without question, the best in the CFL. And don't forget, next Sunday it is BC at Winnipeg, the return match. Winnipeg at Vancouver a week from Friday. The Blue Jays have scored. We'll tell you about that in just a minute as CFL 85. Out in Montreal is Joe Galat. He's a hard worker, has a tremendous sense of humor. Believe me, he needed it a couple of years ago. He's done a good job. And here is Joe Galat in conversation with our Leo Cahill.
Joe, did you ever think back in 1974 when I was the general manager down there in Memphis for the World Football League team and hired you as a linebacker coach that in 1985, here we'd be sitting up in Canada. I'd be out of football working for CBC, and you'd be in charge of a CFL football team. And tell the fans what you've done since that time.
Well, since that time, Leo, of course, joined the New York Giants as linebacker coach, and a couple years there, and then came up here to Montreal as a defensive coordinator. Then I went with the Houston Oilers, and George Allen gave me a phone call and asked if I'd like to come up and be the head coach of the Montreal Alouettes. And I guess I'm the only coach that retired undefeated for the Montreal Alouettes because we never lost a game.
You're the head coach, you're the general manager, you're really in charge of promotion without portfolio because you go out and do numerous speaking engagements. You're all over the city promoting this football team. You've done a great job. But doesn't all of these extra things detract from your job as head football coach?
Well, you know, a normal guy couldn't do that. But I've never been normal. Actually, what we've done, we've kind of tied it all together. I think when we first started the franchise, we had very little hopes of having a very good season because we hadn't recruited, and we just brought in, we called it the Statue of Liberty team. You know, you're tired, you're weary, you're huddled masses.
Even short on footballs, huh?
Yeah, we brought in about anybody that wanted to play, and they joked with us about wearing out the x-ray machines at the Montreal General Hospital. But one thing that we did bring also was fellows who were oriented to try to promote the sport in the city. We practiced in virtually every park in town.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I think it was something that we had to do. It was something that we had to bring about. And since that time, it's just been promotions all the time. You know, we've tried to sell the sport. And I think 25,000 fans, even after a bad game, means that we've made some headway.
Joe, you have a master's degree in business administration, and Lord knows you need one coming into a situation where the football team was just about ready to lose their colors. But how are things going right now as far as the financial picture for the Concordes?
Well, you know, Leo, we lost some money certainly early in the franchise history. And I think each year we've curbed our expenditures, and we brought in added revenue. And at mid-season this year, our revenue was over what it was the year before. So we're hoping to get very close to that break-even point this year. And, you know, if we can average 30,000 fans, that's where we want to be. Now, we're at about 24,000, 25,000 per game. but hoping that we can bring in some good ones in these next few weeks. Some critical ball games here. Ottawa game certainly would be a good one, and we close out with Edmonton, hopefully a playoff game here in town, and I think those things would show that we're a viable business enterprise.
Well, Joe, you've had great ownership here with the Concordes, and we both know how important good ownership is for a football team. They've really helped you along, haven't they?
Well, it certainly is. We've got people who have the expertise in business, and we certainly call upon them to give us all the help that we need. And Mr. Ricard has been very supportive. He's also the chairman of the board of directors, board of governors for the CFL, and Charles Brothman, although he's a little bit more behind the scenes, has been very supportive. And I think one of the things that we've done is try to take a business approach to building this football team, and our players have responded, and hopefully the fans will continue to respond.
Before I let you go, I want to ask you one thing. There's a lot of controversy over you and David Shaw, the cornerback from the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. A lot of exchange of heated words and so on and so forth, and you were supposedly to have said that they were a bunch of bums, their football team. I don't believe you said this, Joe. Do you want to clear that up?
Well, you know, like I say, we've been promotion-oriented around here for a long time, and I don't think myself or any of the players would do anything that would detract from the league. And one of the things that came out was the fact that in our first ball game, we had a great ball game and scored 30-some points against Winnipeg in our opener here. And I think at that time, somebody was quoted or had quoted me as saying that their secondary was soft. I don't remember saying that, but perhaps it was in response to maybe a very critical press that wants to know why we don't throw the ball deep. And I said that their secondary played soft coverage, didn't give us the deep throws, and perhaps that was what David Shaw built upon. But I certainly didn't call anybody bums, and we have a lot of respect for Winnipeg, and we had a lot of respect for them even after we defeated them. And I think one of the things that we're hoping is that, you know, one of the good football teams like Winnipeg or BC is a team that we can pattern ourselves after.
Well, what you'd really like to do now, don't kid me, what you'd really like to do is end up playing that same Winnipeg team in the Grey Cup and show them who's boss.
Maybe protect the passer a little better. Yeah, that's right.
Okay, Joe, thank you.
Montreal head coach Joe Galat. That baseball game in Milwaukee is all over in the first inning. The Toronto Blue Jays leading by a score of 4-0. Well, I see that Don Whitman and Leo Cahill are standing by right now. Just a reminder, Hamilton and Calgary coming up right after this football game. Don and Leo are already back up at Lansdowne Park in Ottawa. Leo, very interesting conversation with Joe Galat.
Yes, Brian, Leo did have a very interesting conversation with Joe Galat, and Joe Galat, I'm sure, is having an interesting conversation with his team in the dressing room as the Montreal Concordes trail 20-7 at halftime. Turnovers, the key in this ball game both ways. The Rough Riders capitalized on 2 turnovers, an interception and failure by Montreal to pick up first down yardage as they gambled on third down near midfield. 2 touchdowns for Ottawa. The result, Montreal on 2 fumbles by Ottawa could only get 2 field goals. They came late in the first half. It's 20-7. Ottawa leading Montreal after 30 minutes of play, and we'll return with more from Lansdowne Park. Well, Brian, in the first half, the Ottawa Rough Riders took advantage of a couple of miscues by the Montreal Concorde. Early in the ball game, a key interception, Leo, by Tom Town.
Yeah, it was a key interception. There was the ineffectiveness, really, of Turner Gill in the first half, but the effectiveness of the quarterback, J.C. Watts from Ottawa, and McRae. Now, you'll see Turner Gill throw the pass out into flat, a very dangerous place, threw it at Iraqi. It reflected off of him, and Towns very alertly picked it up, started into the end zone, and boy, he would have loved to have scored this one right here, but a little bit of a jump right there may have gotten him in, but he got right down to within 2 yards, and that was a big break for them down early in the ball game.
And then when the Ottawa Rough Riders stopped the Montreal Concordes on that third down gamble, the bad exchange from center involving Turner Gill, and Joe Galat didn't hesitate after that in putting Mark Stevens in.
Now, I think, you know, the biggest consternation of the year so far is Turner Gill. He started out so good, and then he's kind of tailed off, and a lot of people wonder whether those 2 big hits he got early in the year may have had an effect on him. But as you say, Smith is a kid that can get in there, and Joe Galat's not afraid to use him, and I think those 6 points toward the end of the first half may have given the Montreal team just a little bit of a boost.
Move within 2 points of first place in the Eastern Conference, defeating the Montreal Concordes by a score of 23-7. Ottawa now with the record of 5 wins and 7 losses. The Montreal Concordes now even out at 6 wins and 6 defeats. Don't forget, coming up, Hamilton at Calgary. We'll be back right after this.
And a very pleasant good afternoon, everyone. I'm Brian Williams. Welcome back to CFL Control in Toronto. You have just seen the Ottawa Rough Riders take some of the pressure off their head coach, Joe Moss, as they defeat Montreal 23-7. That puts the pressure on Hamilton. Hamilton is playing in Calgary. We take you live to McMahon Stadium. Here are Steve Armitage and Ron Lancaster.
Together, and if you look at the secondary, they lead the league with interceptions as a team, so that's when you're playing together.
And at this point, we'd like to welcome all the stations along the network of the CBC to this game in Calgary. Hamilton against the Stampeders, and a big interception for Hamilton. We're still in the first quarter, no score. Rick Johnson at quarterback for the Calgary Stampeders, and that was his second pass of the ball game, and it was picked off by Paul Bennett and the Hamilton Ticats.
Well, that Hamilton defense has been tough all year.
And again, everyone, I'm Brian Williams, and welcome back to CFL Control in Toronto. The Ticats up by a point at halftime. Coming up, I'll bring you up to date on Major League Baseball. Don Whitman will wrap up that big win by the Ottawa Rough Riders, and we will take a look at special charity work being done by the CFL Players Association. 3 will be the magic number for the Toronto Blue Jays in just a few minutes, because as we...
Ottawa put together a drive, climaxed by this run by Tim McRae. Initially, he is stopped at the line of scrimmage, but second effort enables him to get into the end zone, his second touchdown of the game in a 23-7 win. It was 20-7 at the half. In the second half, stout defensive play by both teams with just 3 points being scored, the result of a Dean Dorsey field goal. So the Ottawa Rough Riders, with a record now of 5-7, occupying second place in the Eastern Conference, just 2 points behind the Montreal Concordes, who see their record even at 6 wins and 6 losses. Next week, Montreal will be idle, and as a result, Ottawa has an opportunity to move into a tie for first place in the East when they entertain the Toronto Argonauts here at Lansdowne Park. And we'll have that game for you on CBC television. The final score this afternoon at Lansdowne Park, Ottawa 23, Montreal 7.
All right, thank you, Don Whitman. And that win this afternoon by the Ottawa Rough Riders certainly puts the pressure on Hamilton. You see the score. The Ticats up by 1. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this. And with more on that, here's Vic Rudder.
The Canadian Football League is involved in many charitable organizations. The newest venture the CFL Players Association strongly supports is a calendar in aid of Special Olympics. It's called the Men of the CFL. There's also the United Way. In fact, a number of players have made commercials in support of the United Way and the many United Way agencies. But the #1 charitable organization the CFL Players Association is involved with is Ronald McDonald House. Ronald McDonald House is closely associated with children's hospitals in major centers across Canada. At the moment, there are 10 such houses in the country. They are homes where the families of hospitalized children can stay while their children are undergoing treatment. Ed Chalupka is president of the CFL Players Association. He played center for the Hamilton Tiger-Cats for 7 seasons and has been president of the Players Association since 1980. And I caught up with Ed at the Hall of Fame game in Hamilton on August 18th.
I know Ronald McDonald House is a very special interest to the CFLPA.
It is indeed. Since our affiliation with them, we've done more in terms of work for charity. I think we contributed in excess of $50,000 from a single event this past May.
Do you have any problem getting players out, getting them involved in the community and with the different charities?
Not at all. If anything, the players come to us almost on a daily and weekly basis to get involved in their special projects. There's just so many out there, and there's so many that the players involved with on their own personal level.
But ultimately, while it helps the charity, it also helps the player, the association, and the league itself.
Indeed, it helps everybody because it brings us all closer together, whether the league, the players, and even the fans, because they're involved as well.
What do you think a player feels towards charitable groups like that? I mean, it's almost cliche to think that I see someone who may be mentally handicapped, physically handicapped, and that by the grace of God go I. Is it that simple that athletes get involved?
No, I think it's a desire within the athletes to give back. You know, athletes as a class, if you take football players, there's less than 400 in this country, and if you take it, they're Americans and Canadians, but you can compare the overall population, that's less than what? Not even 1/10%, right? These are special people, and they're special through their athletic ability, and I think they look around them and they see, well, geez, let me help others that are less fortunate, and that's really what it is. So it's, you know, I know they get involved with the handicapped people, but it's because they're so, what's the word, privileged or so fortunate themselves.
It's fortunate athletes helping the community through Ronald McDonald House.
My name is Kay, and before we register, maybe we can go upstairs or show you a room and just show you around the house a little bit.
And Ronald McDonald House is more than just a room for the family to stay in. The home's become a gathering place for involved families where they can discuss their individual problems and relate to others in similar situations. But the biggest thing is that Ronald McDonald House has helped keeping the family together through some very tough times.
You look forward to coming, don't you?
Yeah, and I know when Mom and Dad are here and I'm at the hospital, I know, like, before, I'd be afraid that, you know, it'd be a long time when Mom's coming. I think, well, maybe Mom's so tired and so drawn out that she, you know, she's on the highway, maybe something happens, you know, and, like, because I wait for her. But when I know she's here, and Dad's here, I know they're fine. They're like 5 minutes away, so nothing's going to happen.
Ronald McDonald House, one of the many community and charity organizations the CFL Players Association is very proud to be involved with.
Thank you, Vic. They should be very proud indeed. Our skiing star Todd Brooker is also involved with Ronald McDonald House. Ken Reed and I will join Todd in late February for a special ski day for Ronald McDonald House in Collingwood, Ontario. Stay with us. We'll go back out to Steve and Ron and the second half as CFL 85 continues.
Stadium in Calgary on a beautiful afternoon. The Hamilton Ticats have a 1-point lead over the Stampeders, 14-13. There were two major scoring plays in the opening half and a 1-point run. It looked as if Hamilton were going to blow the Stampeders out of the park.
Sure did. Two quick turnovers, Paul Bennett's interception, and they only got a single out of that, and then Leo Ezrin brought it down. Hobart, down close to the goal line, does what he does best. Took the quick look, didn't like what he saw, outruns Culpepper to the outside, touchdown, 8-0 Hamilton. But the next kickoff, the Stampeders return it into Hamilton territory, and on the first play, Rick Johnson drops back, Emmanuel Talbot straight down the field, 49 yards. He gets a step on Streeter, and they're right back in the ball game. It's 8-7 at that time.
And it looked as if it would be an offensive ball game early in the opening quarter, but then the defenses came back and tightened up, and outstanding for Hamilton was Grover Covington.
Well, he's been their leader with 9 quarterback sacks, but what I want to show you, the main thing about the Hamilton defense, this is the key. We have said over and over they only rush 4 people. They're going to see Sauvé and Covington come from the outside, and that'll force the quarterback to step into this area, and when he does, Price and Mitchell Price, and Mike Walker will make the sack. And that's the way you should rush it. Now let's watch him do it. The first thing we're going to see is Sauvé from this side. Number 88 going upfield. Get upfield. Don't allow the quarterback outside. There's Covington. They force him up in, and sure enough, there are the tackles. And we have talked so much that the Hamilton Tiger Cats have so much confidence in that front 4 of theirs that they only rush 4 people. Very, very few blitzes. So that's great. Good job.
Okay, this is how the scoring went in the first 2 quarters of play. In the first quarter, Hamilton opened the scoring with a single. They came back with that touchdown that you saw from Ken Hobart, and then it was Calgary replying with a touchdown of their own, and then a Calgary field goal from J.T. Hay. That was 10-8. And then in the second quarter, a 29-yard field goal from Bernie Ruoff, followed by a 52-yarder, and then J.T. Hay coming in with a 9-yarder to make it 14-13, and that's the way it stands at the half. Taking a check of the CompuStats out of the first half of play. Notice the turnovers, 2 on each team, and fairly even throughout the game, although Calgary had a little bit more offense than Hamilton did.
A couple of the big plays in that 163 yards for Stampeders through the air were to Talbot, 49 yards for the touchdown. Then he come back late in the second quarter and hit him in that seam again. So those have been the big plays for Hamilton, but for Calgary, the Hamilton offense has just got to get something going. You saw 70 yards of running, 70 yards passing. That's not enough. Just they've got to get something going offensively, and it's a big game for them.
especially on the heels of Ottawa's 23-7 win over the Montreal Concordes this afternoon. That's Joe Barnes, and we were told by the 13 and move into a second-place tie in the CFL East with the Ottawa Rough Riders. Both of them now with 10 points, only 2 points behind the Montreal Concordes.
You know, you were mentioning a while ago, and I was thinking, you know, Al Bruno's going to be very happy with the second place right now, but I know one thing, he's got eyes on first place because of the 2 wins over the Concordes. If he can keep things rolling, he's got a great position right now to finish. You know, they said early in the year they had the tough part of their schedule early. They hit all, you know, the Lions and the Bombers all right away in the first half of the season, and they said they were going to get better as the season went along, and sure enough, it's happened for them, and that's good. A big crowd next week at Ivory Wind when the Eskimos come to town.
Remember how it went for Hamilton last year. They started so slowly, came on strong towards the end, went all the way to the Grey Cup.
Wasn't a bad way to finish it. I know they probably were disappointed in the end result in the Grey Cup, but the main thing, they won the East and got there, and right now they're in a great position to finish first, and that's the ideal thing. You don't have to play that semifinal game, and you're home for the final.
They have now won 4 out of their last 5 games. Al Bruno is on the sidelines. Congratulations, Coach. You've now won 4 out of 5. You're on a roll.
Well, thanks a lot. It's great to have a great defense out there. They won the ball game for us today, and they did a great job on pressing the quarterbacks, picking off the pass, stopping the run, and we just scored enough just to win. But defense, I have to give them plus today for this one.
The only thing you could really be disappointed in, Al, was that your defense, as you say, played so well, and they got them great field position, and you couldn't put it into the end zone.
Right, that's right, Ron. We you know, of course, as a quarterback, you probably know that better than myself, but certainly we just we couldn't get the 6 points in there. We got good field position, and we had to settle for the field goal.
I think you have to be impressed with the play that George Works had today, and the way he's come on for you as a running back.
Yeah, I'll tell you, George he's a small guy, but he has some guts, and he has a little bit of power with the size, and he made some good runs for us, picked up some good yardage, made some good first downs for us.
Al, we were talking up here that now you're in that second place tie, but I know you have to be thinking seriously with those 2 wins over the Concord that you have the opportunity to finish first. That's #1 goal, isn't it?
Ron, you know, that's a possibility, I'll tell you. But you know, we're just we were struggling. Now we're winning a few. We're coming back. Defense playing great. If we can still move the ball, we may give that Montreal bunch, Ottawa bunch, or Toronto bunch even run for the money.
Al, give us a few thoughts on your quarterbacking this afternoon, Kenny Hobart.
He was terrible. You know, I told him on the sideline, matter of fact, that was a lousy pass. He agreed.
Sure.
And he was off today, no doubt about it. He picked up the last quarter. Of course, he made some good throws, but overall, he just went hitting the receivers, and he was forced to run.
You're going to have to be a little more honest with your quarterback, Al. I mean, I agree.
Hey, he knows how I feel.
That's right. Yeah, you're exactly right, and I know he will agree with you. Quarterbacks know when they're playing well and when they're not. It just wasn't his day, but the main thing is you get the 2 points, right?
That's right, Ron, all the way around. You got to get the 2 points. I'm satisfied with it. Defense played well. If we can put it together like we have been, hey, we're going to be all right.
Al Bruno, congratulations on a fine victory here in Calgary this afternoon.
Thanks a lot. You guys are doing a great job up there. Keep it up.
Al Bruno and the Hamilton Ticats defeating the Calgary Stampeders 30-13. The Ticats defeat the Stampeders 30-13, and both of our game stars come from the Hamilton Ticats. George Works on offense and Les Brown on defense. First to you, George. You had 95 yards rushing this afternoon for the Ticats. You've got to be pleased with that.
Yes, I am. You know, I was looking forward to a pretty good day. You know, we started out slow. We didn't play with much intensity as we should have to begin with, but we finally pulled together the second half.
Your offensive line seemed to get stronger as the game wore on.
Oh, yeah, they got real strong. You know, they picking up the blitzes and leading us in the hole real, you know, opening up big holes for us.
George, I always ask running backs this question. Every running back that I've met or known feels that the more they carry the ball and the more they can go into that line, the better they're going to be by the end of the game. Is that the way you like to work?
Yes, that's the way it is, because the more it goes along, you get the feel of the floor of the game, you know, and you just get the feel of it, and you just get in a certain type of groove, and you just go with it.
Well, you had things going for you today. I tell you what, you did a great job coming out of the backfield on the passes. Your offense wasn't able to put it in to the end zone, and then finally that last drive, it just looked to me like you got together and said, hey, the heck with it, we're going to run it down their throats. Is that right?
That's what we did. That's exactly the attitude we had. You know, we had to get together because we knew it wasn't over yet. We had to get 7 points on the board.
Did you detect a weakness in the middle of that Stampeder defense towards the end?
Yes, we did, because it seemed like they was sending a strong side flow to the wide side of the field, and that left things open in the middle.
George Works, the offensive game star. Now let's move on to the defensive game star today. Les Brown with his 2 interceptions. Les, you have 8 on the season. You're tied with Darnell Clash for the most in the CFL in that department.
Yeah, I'm pretty pleased with that. Tied with Paul Bennett. Me and Paul's been having a race and seeing who can get the most interceptions.
35 interceptions by the defensive secondary, and I know this. Every defensive back that I've ever known always feels that the defensive line is what credits those interceptions. Would you agree?
Oh, yes, I would agree very much, because when they get the pressure on the quarterback doesn't have time to take his second and third reads, and he has to get the ball away as soon as possible. And our defensive line has been great all year. They've been coming hard. We have everybody. When someone gets tired, we even have people to come in and back them up and come in there hard.
You guys play a lot of the zone defense. Do you like it when you switch it up and go man-to-man coverage?
Yeah, because I like man-to-man myself. A lot of zones, sometimes you have to pay more attention to just one person, and it kind of confuses you sometimes. Like on the interception I got, the first interception I got kind of confused. I was staying over too long with my wide out, and then Talbert ended up in the middle of the field all by himself, and I had to get over there somehow, and I just ran as hard as I could.
Let's take a look at that interception in the third quarter. Maybe you can tell us what happened.
Well, right now, like I said, the guy was going to run out, and then after I saw he's running out, he turned up, and I just happened to turn with him and get up in the air and get the ball.
Well, congratulations, Les, on a fine effort to you and George Works, the offensive and defensive game stars from the game here in Calgary this afternoon. Hamilton 30-13 winners over the Calgary Stampeders, and that's a big win for Hamilton, putting them into a tie for second place in the East.
Well, I'll tell you, they have to be very pleased, and as Al Bruno said, when they get things rolling their way, they're going to give every team in the East, and I believe not just in the East, they're going to get the Eskimos next week and either win, and they better be ready to play when they come into Hamilton.
Okay, we'll be back a little later here in Calgary, but right now we're going to CFL 85 Control and Brian Williams. Brian?
All right, thank you. Go back to Friday night. We're going to show you the Ottawa win this afternoon, but let's begin with a game that was played Friday night at Exhibition Stadium in Toronto. The Winnipeg Blue Bombers came in here. They were heavy favorites, but they were surprised by the Toronto Argonauts. Cal Murphy could not believe what he was seeing in the first half Friday night at Exhibition Stadium. In the second quarter, Ricky Turner, the Toronto quarterback, keeps it to go in for the touchdown. Heck, the Argonauts couldn't even believe what was happening. At that point, Toronto shocking Winnipeg by a score of 24-9. The second half belongs to the Bombers. John Hufnagel out of Penn State goes to Canadian Joe Poplawski, a 47-yard touchdown, but it was too late. Toronto won it 27-24. Now, at that time, Toronto in a three-way tie for second with Ottawa and Hamilton. That, of course, would change today. Before today, let's go back to last night. The cheerleaders and more than 41,000 had a lot to cheer at BC Place in Vancouver. First quarter, 19-yard touchdown, Roy DeWalt to John Pancratz. Now, the story in the game for Saskatchewan was they committed so many turnovers. Now, a key player in that category for BC was Darnell Clash. Here he recovers the fumble. He is the defensive game star, setting up a field goal by Pasaglia. Pasaglia had 6 field goals. He surpassed 1,500 points in his career, his 10th year in the CFL. DeWalt's second touchdown comes in the third quarter to Merv Fernandez. The Lions, no question, the best in the CFL. All right. I said that three-way tie for second place would change. It changed today before a good crowd of 25,000 at Lansdowne Park in Ottawa. Montreal's Turner Gill out of Nebraska is passing. Turner Gill in the first quarter is intercepted by Tom Towns, who returns it down to the Montreal 2-yard line. Then Timmy McRae will take it, go up and over for the touchdown, 10-1 Ottawa. In the second quarter, J.C. Watts out of Oklahoma, where they played the wishbone. He's used to running, scrambles down to the 1-yard line. On his second try, McRae gets his second touchdown of the day. It was 20-1 in the second quarter. The Ottawa Rough Riders hang on to upset Montreal. They love it in the nation's capital. At that point, Ottawa was in sole possession of second place. Of course, you've just seen Hamilton move back into a tie with the Ottawa Rough Riders. Saskatchewan lost last night. Still, Saskatchewan has the best fans in all of football. We get more in Rider Pride from Steve Ruddick.
Recent Saskatchewan Rough Rider history is not much to cheer about. The club hasn't reached the playoffs for 8 straight campaigns, but that's only a short chapter in the club's rather illustrious history book. Regina is a small city, smallest in the 9-team league, with a small stadium, Taylor Field by name. But come hell or high water, the Saskatchewan Roughriders have the best fans in the whole CFL. A franchise that wasn't expected to last past 1960 continues strong in its 75th year. Western Canada got a late start in football's earliest form, rugby. While the league had been underway for almost 30 years in the East, Regina didn't catch the bug until September 7th, 1910. 3 years later, they hosted their first Eastern club, the Hamilton Tigers, in an exhibition game. The results were predictable, 26-4 for the visitors. It wasn't until 1928 that Western teams were taken seriously and allowed to yearly challenge for the Grey Cup. Regina was the Western rep 5 straight times from 1928 to 32, but they lost every game. Over these years, rugby rules gave way to ones we are now familiar with. Downfield blocking was allowed, and in 1929, Regina was the first team to use the forward pass in a Grey Cup game.
The Regina Football Club wore red and black uniforms from 1910 up until 1948, but after the Second World War, these uniforms were in pretty bad shape.
A small population and advertising base made for tight budgets, so replacing the uniforms was a problem. One day a motion came up to change the club colors from red and black to green and white. That was turned down, but reversed after an explanation.
Jack Fife was on the management committee at that time, and he was in business. He was down in the States, and he ran into this bargain in the sweaters, and they happened to be green and white. So immediately we thought we needed the sweaters because the others were getting kind of worn out, and we went and said, but this is a good idea. Those are Saskatchewan colors.
1948 was also the year the Regina Roughriders became the Saskatchewan Roughriders, in hopes that by making it a provincial team and not just a city team, more people would come to games. It worked. Even now, season ticket holders often live hundreds of miles away, and even some come from the northern states. 1951 saw the Riders take part in their first modern-day Grey Cup game against Ottawa. Now, Saskatchewan tried all week to get Ottawa to allow them to use an extra import named Bob Sandberg. At the last minute, Ottawa said okay. But Saskatchewan head coach Harry Blackjack Smith kept him on the bench to be used later in the game. Well, when Sandberg was finally put into the contest, it was far too late. The Riders couldn't catch up, and they lost 21-14. Coach Smith not only lost the game, but he lost his job over that episode. 1956 saw a strong team in the making. The Riders lost to Edmonton in the Western Final, but the future looked bright until December the 8th. 4 players and their wives were returning from the All-Star game in Vancouver. Their plane ran into heavy turbulence and crashed in the mountains. Mel Beckett, Mario DeMarco, Gord Sturtridge, and Ray Cernick. Their wives and 54 others perished. To this day, the crash is the worst single disaster to strike a Canadian sport. With the loss of these 4 stars, the club dropped to last place in 1957, recording only 3 victories. Earlier this year, their football jerseys were retired. Money problems continued to plague the Riders from the 50s well into the 60s. Without a lot of money to bring talented Americans in, Saskatchewan remained competitive thanks to a good supply of Canadians from 2 junior clubs, the Saskatoon Hilltops and the Regina Rams. Right now, Regina is rated 2nd of all Canadian junior teams. Finally, in 1966, their 13th attempt to win the Grey Cup, they did it, led by such greats as quarterback Ron Lancaster.
Hand off Reed.
Running back George Reed.
No stopping him. Touchdown!
And receiver Hugh Campbell, just to name 3 members of this all-star cast. 29-14 was the score over the Ottawa Rough Riders. Lancaster, by the way, beat his old club. After 2 seasons in Ottawa, he was traded for $500 to Saskatchewan because at a time when teams used only 1 quarterback, Ottawa decided to go with Russ Jackson. Over the years, the Riders have put together some good clubs with many great Hall of Famers, but still that 1966 club was the only one to so far bring the Grey Cup to Saskatchewan. Despite the money problems, the Riders, backed by the fans, are still around. long after many people thought a team could not be supported here. You could say the Riders' flame burns brightly after 75 years. For CBC Sports, I'm Steve Ruddock in Regina.
I love that guy with a hat. Thank you, Steve Ruddock. A great football history in Regina. To you people in Regina, we salute the best football fans, not only in this country, but the best football fans anywhere. Ron Lancaster, our own Ron Lancaster.
Just watching that. First quarter scoring summary here at McMahon Stadium. Hamilton began it with a single and then a touchdown, followed by the Calgary touchdown and a J.T. Hay field goal. In the second quarter, it was a couple of Hamilton field goals, followed by a Calgary field goal, making it 14-13. Then in the third quarter, again, the field goal kicking of Bernie Ruoff made the difference for the Hamilton Ticats, run the score up to 20-13. And then the final touchdown of the game, Dave Graffey, followed by another field goal to make the final count 30-13. Statistically, and the big stat has to be turnovers. 7 by the Calgary Stampeders. And, Ronnie, I was a little surprised that Hamilton weren't able to generate more offense off of those turnovers.
Well, I think Coach Bruno hit the nail on the head. Ken Hobart didn't have a great day. And anytime your offense doesn't move the football and put the points on the board, the quarterback will always take the blame because that's his job.
Well, let's take a look at the touchdowns right now.
Sure, let's take a look at them. Why not? We had a Ruoff field goal for a single, then a Leo Esmond's interception set up this run by Ken Hobart. You see, he just outruns Culpepper to the corner, builds up the score, gives them an 8-0 lead. But right away, a great kickoff return by Hopkins, brings it back down the field, and Rick Johnson just steps back, finds Emmanuel Talbert behind Mark Streeter, 49 yards, he lays it in, it makes the score 8-7. No more touchdowns till late in the game, and this is when the Ticats took the ball and ran it down their throat, and they get down to the 4-yard line, a little play action fake that works, and out in the flat is Graffey, nothing to it. That capped it. That made it 30-13, and the Ticats walk away with it.
And, of course, the big 2 points that moved Hamilton into a second-place tie in the Eastern Division of the CFL with the Ottawa Rough Riders. Both have 10 points, and Montreal lead with 12 points. Thank you very much, Ronnie. Enjoyed working with you this weekend.
Pleasure.
Now let's go back to CFL 85 Control and Brian Williams. Brian?
All right, thank you, Steve. I know it has been a busy weekend for you fellas. Jim Marshall, Ron Harrison, our producer and director, along with Steve and Ron, flying this morning from the game in British Columbia, but a good job today in Calgary. Hamilton winning. Let's show you the Western Conference standings. Really, the big change occurred there Friday and last night when Winnipeg lost in Toronto. BC beat Saskatchewan last night. Let's show you the Eastern standings. And Steve alluded to the fact that the Toronto Argonauts are now back in last place. Ottawa and Hamilton tied for second. We will have...
Despite leading Toronto to an upset win last week over Winnipeg, quarterback Ricky Turner had resigned himself to being a backup this afternoon against Ottawa. Throughout the week, there was speculation that injured quarterback Conrad Holloway would return to the Argo lineup today. But Holloway's knee is still too tender for him to play. So Ricky Turner, again, is the man who will carry Toronto hopes here at Lansdowne Park in Ottawa against the Rough Riders. Hi, everybody. Last week, Ricky Turner had a big game against the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, running for better than 100 yards. Ron Lancaster, can he do it again this afternoon against Ottawa?
Well, I guess that's what remains to be seen, Don, but you know this, in this tight Eastern Division, every game being so important, Bob Obilovich wouldn't care if Ricky Turner ran for another 100 yards, but if he has to run the football, he may get some help today. Kevin Lowe, recently acquired from the Buffalo Bills, he's the guy that's going to carry the football for him down the stretch because Bob Obilovich figures he's the best running back they've had since he's been with the Argonauts. For the Ottawa Rough Riders, Tim McRae is going to miss today's game because of an ankle injury. That means Lester Brown gets the opportunity to play again against his old teammates, and he had a great game against them in Toronto when he rushed for over 100 yards. I think the Ottawa Rough Rider offense is in pretty good shape. Leo, what do you think?
Well, Ron, I wouldn't be concerned about the Ottawa offense because they've modified it a little bit, and J.C. Watts is doing a good job of handling it right now. He's getting adequate help from his offensive backs. He's got a good fleet of receivers, and he's got a good offensive line in front of him right now. But the thing that you really got to be concerned about this time of year is defense. Defense is so important. And here are three people that are an intricate part of the Ottawa defense, their linebacker corps. We'll see right now Towns take a deflection last week against the Concord and take it right down into scoring position. He and Sovieta are playing completely unexperienced, but the key, as far as the defense is concerned this year, Don, is Al Washington at middle linebacker. And if this kid can have a good year, they're going to be tough defensively, and they're going to be playoff contenders.
Well, they're fighting for a very important spot in the Eastern Conference standings this afternoon. Toronto and Ottawa will have the opening kickoff for you in just a moment. But first, let's go to CFL Control and Brian Williams.
Thank you, Don. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to CFL Control in Toronto. We take a look at the Eastern standings. They reflect the importance of the game this afternoon, especially with Hamilton losing last night to the Edmonton Eskimos. Speaking of Edmonton, they're still alive in the hunt for first place in the Western Conference. Don't forget, the big game coming up later today has the BC Lions.
Those remain in the basement of the CFL's East Division, while the Ottawa Rough Riders have moved into a first-place tie with Montreal. At Lansdowne Park, Ottawa got past Toronto 19-15.
In Ottawa, Lester Brown was the star on offense for the Rough Riders. Here he hauls in the pass from J.C. Watts and gets all the way down to the Toronto 2-yard line. On the next play, Brown goes in for the touchdown to make it 9-0. The Rough Riders get a field goal before the end of the half to lead 12-2. In the third quarter, leading 12-3, Ken Clark goes back to punt for Ottawa. Carl Brazeley gets in to block it, and Preston Young takes the ball into the end zone for the touchdown. That brings Toronto within 2, trailing 12-10. And later in the third quarter, Lance Chama kicks a field goal that gives Toronto its first lead. That makes it 13-12 Argos. But in the fourth quarter, Ottawa kicker Dean Dorsey kicks 2 field goals, and that puts Ottawa back on top, leading 18-15. Late in the game, Toronto mounts a drive, but Ricky Barden snuffs it out with his second interception of the game. The Ottawa Rough Riders beat Toronto 19-15 at Lansdowne Park.
In Winnipeg, the Blue Bombers pulled into a first-place tie in the West with BC by beating the Lions 33-26.
First quarter, BC's Roy DeWalt throwing to Jim Sandusky, who makes what may be the catch of the year, a one-handed grab. He gets up. When it's done, he will have gone 65 yards, but BC only gets a single to lead 2-0. In the second quarter, with Winnipeg leading 7-2, they'll add to their total as Tom Clements hits Jeff Boyd, who makes a great catch in the end zone, 14-2 Winnipeg. The Lions get their first touchdown as Roy DeWalt hits Joey Little, who breaks several tackles and goes 77 yards in the pass and run touchdown. The Lions trail by a score of 17-9, but Winnipeg gets that back moments later. Tom Clements back to pass, and he will hit Jeff Boyd, who hauls this one in for 30 yards. It's 24-9 Winnipeg. BC trailing 27-19 fourth quarter. They threaten, but Roy Bennett intercepts Roy DeWalt, and the Bombers hang on to beat BC 33-23.
In May of 1986, British Columbia will welcome the world to Expo 86, a world-class World's Fair in what is already considered by many to be one of the world's most beautiful cities, highlighted by Canada's only dome stadium, BC Place, in the heart of downtown Vancouver. And tonight, for only the 5th time in the short history of this magnificent building, it's the sellout, 59,000 plus. In Winnipeg, a sellout crowd was on hand there for the first meeting between the league's best. First place Lions trying to snap the Bombers' 15-game home unbeaten streak. Tom Clements and Jeff Boyd served notice early that this was going to be an aerial classic. Boyd would score twice, and there was no question he was one of the keys to the Winnipeg offense. The key for the Lions and their offense was the 6-year veteran quarterback, Roy DeWalt. DeWalt, when he got the time, worked the Bombers' defense like a surgeon, passing for over 500 yards. Many of those yards supplied by the circus-like catches of the amazing Merv Fernandez. Swerve and Merv finished with over 200 yards, leading to talk of triple coverage in Game 2. In Game 1, the Lions tried to pick on the Bombers' outstanding rookie, Roy Bennett. But BC went to the well one too many times. Bennett snuffed out a late-game drive with a key interception that gave the Bombers the win and a share of first place. Tonight, the rematch here in the Lions' Den, BC Place Stadium. First place still on the line. BC hosting the Blue Bombers. Hi, everyone. It's good to have you with us for what many people are calling the key matchup of the season in the CFL. Ron Lancaster over 900 yards of offense in that game on Sunday in Winnipeg. The defenses will be asked to tighten up.
Oh, they sure will. And although they are the top 2 defenses in the league, you cannot let them have 900 yards offense to anybody. The Winnipeg Blue Bombers sacked Roy DeWalt 5 times last week, but early in this football game, they have got to get in his face and get in a hurry. Look for West and Jones and those linebackers to get involved in the blitzes, and Tony only Norman with 11 quarterback sacks. He's the leader. The BC front four with 34 quarterback sacks, but yet not one against the Winnipeg Blue Bombers last week. They have got to get to Tom Clements because he can get rid of the ball in a hurry. But the whole story comes down to one thing, Steve. We got 59,000 people here. We got the top two teams in the league. Let's kick it off and play football.
The teams are ready. We're ready for the rematch. The BC Lions against the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. The opening kickoff is just a few moments away. Right now, let's go to CFL Control and Brian Williams.
Thank you, Steve. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to CFL Control in Toronto. Lions and Blue Bombers fighting it out for first place in that Western Conference. Speaking of the Western Conference, we take a look at the standings. Now, don't forget, folks, Edmonton home to Montreal tomorrow. With a win, the Eskimos, provided there is no tie tonight, can move to within 2 points of one of these two teams. Montreal tomorrow will be trying to take over sole possession of first. Ottawa has the weekend off. Hamilton home to Saskatchewan on Sunday. Thanksgiving Monday, Toronto is at Calgary. It is turning into a one-sided game in Kansas City. In the bottom of the fifth inning, Blue Jays lead the Royals by a score of 5-2. Toronto trying to go up 3 games to none. Coming up at halftime, I'll have complete baseball highlights from Kansas City. Peter Mansbridge with a brief newscast. Scott Oak reports on the Blue Bombers' popular head coach Cal Murphy. Stay with us. The opening kickoff is up next as CFL 85 continues.
While playoff participants in the West have already been determined, the Eastern race probably won't be decided until the final weekend of regular season play. As things stand this Thanksgiving Day, Ottawa and Montreal share first place. Hamilton trails by 2, and the Argos are 4 back, but they have a game in hand. However, the Argos realize that doesn't mean a thing unless they start winning. They close out the year with a home-and-home series against Calgary, a home game with Montreal, and a visit to Saskatchewan. So this afternoon, the Toronto Argonauts, in quest of an Eastern Conference playoff berth, take on the Calgary Stampeders here at McMahon Stadium. Hi, everybody. The Calgary Stampeders already eliminated from playoff contention in the West, but in the East, it's a dogfight. And Leo Cahill, this is a must game for Toronto.
No question, Don. And today it's again another situation where two young quarterbacks are going head-to-head. And I know that both coaches are just hoping that each quarterback will make more big plays and they'll make mistakes. And for the Toronto Argonauts, as you said, Don, it's a must game. They've got to win this game. Every game that they win now, they're playing for first place. Every game they lose, they're playing for last place. So they got to win this football game today. The pressure is all on Ricky Turner. Greg Vavra, the quarterback for the Calgary Stampeders, he's got to go in there and play. And remember, he beat these Argos last year, Ron.
That's probably the main reason today, Leo, why Greg Vavra gets his first opportunity to start in the 85 season. Last year at CNE Stadium, he led the Stampeders to one of their few wins in the 84 year. But Greg Vavra is on the starting assignment today. The guy he's sitting down is Rick Johnson, who they feel is the quarterback of the future. And when you look at the Calgary Stampeders, they have to be looking at the future. They've got only 3 starters today that was on this football team last year, Don. So I think Calgary has the opportunity to be a spoiler. Their defense is good enough, but we'll find out.
Well, the Calgary Stampeders and Toronto Argonauts are just about set to kick it off. But first, let's go to Brian Williams, standing by for an update from Ivor Wynne Stadium in Hamilton.
And on this Thanksgiving Day, 1985, thank you, Don. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Ivor Wynne Stadium in Hamilton. I hope you're enjoying this holiday because the Hamilton Ticats are simply having a ball. With about 4 minutes to play here in the fourth quarter, they are pounding the Saskatchewan Roughriders by a score of 51-14. Let's go back to the second quarter when the football game was really all over. Joe Paupow is going back to pass for the Western Riders. A good hit here from number 78, Grover Covington, forcing the fumble. Linebacker Mike Walker out of Washington State scoops it up, a 37-yard touchdown, 24-0 Hamilton. Prior to that, Kenny Hobart had passed for touchdowns to Rufus Crawford and Ron Ingram. Speaking of Ken Hobart, 3 minutes after that touchdown, 2nd and 10 from the Rider 38-yard line. Hobart, who started the week as the leading rusher in the Eastern Conference, 3rd overall behind Reeves and Jenkins, goes 38 yards for a touchdown to make it 31-0 Hamilton. We should tell you that Hobart had 83 yards rushing in the first half of the football game today, giving him 765 for the season. That is a new single-season record for a CFL quarterback, breaking the previous record held by the Edmonton Eskimos' Matt Dunnigan. Now,
Coming up at halftime, CFL control will come from here in Hamilton. We will talk with Ken Hobart and head coach Al Bruno. We'll have complete game highlights. We'll bring you up to date. We'll have a Blue Jays report, and we'll update that National League game, which is just underway in St. Louis. A busy afternoon. Stay with us. The opening kickoff is up next between the Argos and the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Stay with us. CFL 85 continues after this. The Saskatchewan Roughriders, 51-41
here at McMahon Stadium. We're going to talk to a friend of mine, George Reed. We had a few years together as players. George, talk to you a little bit. Number one, as an ex-player and also as past president of Players Association, you've had a chance to be in Regina. Now you're living in Calgary. All the talk in the CFL this year about the problems. How do you see them?
Well, they have some problems, Ronnie, but I think that what they have to do is get back and learn how to market this football game. I think that what we see now is that you have to be entertained when you go to a game, and all the time the entertainment doesn't have to be on the football field. It has to be a lot of things revolved around it. And I think if they, until they start getting back into something like that there, until the football team can come back, they're going to have problems drawing people.
Are the problems as severe as a lot of people make them out to be?
Well, I don't think the problems are as severe, Ronnie. We've gone through this here for many years. One team has been down, two teams has been down in attendance. I think the main problem, though, I think it's that tendency because of the high budgets right now, that if they don't start really progressing in the right way, that I think that they can get in serious trouble.
Do you miss being involved with the Players Association? You were president for a long time.
Well, Ronnie, I'm still involved in a way. I'm past president. I go to all the meetings and everything and sit and talk and everything. And, of course, we'll be having another meeting now at the Grey Cup this year in Montreal. And I'm looking forward to that. I think we've got some interesting things that needs to be discussed, and hopefully I can contribute to that.
Looking at the way the game's played today, George, you would have had a tough time setting all those records if they was going to throw the ball all the time. What do you think?
Well, I tell you what, if we had a football team like we had, we'd have still been running the football. We did what we wanted to do, and we would probably won our share of the football game still.
George, my pleasure. It's great to come to Calgary now to see you. I'm a little bit surprised at it. Anyway, we're going to go away for a commercial, and we'll be coming right back here to McMahon Stadium for more halftime and the second half right after this.
It's halftime. The Calgary Stampeders lead Toronto by a score of 11-1. Good afternoon again, everyone. I'm Brian Williams. Welcome back to a deserted Ivor Wynne Stadium in Hamilton, where earlier today the Ticats destroyed Saskatchewan 51-14. It was all over in the first half as we pick it up in the first quarter. Kenny Hobart to a wide-open Rufus Crawford, an 18-yarder, 7-0 Hamilton. In the second quarter, on the first play of the quarter, again, it's Hobart to the air. Now, you know, the knock against Hobart was he's not a good passer. Well, he's standing by. He'll tell us about that. Here's a 36-yarder to Ron Ingram out of Oklahoma State, 17-0 Hamilton. A brutal performance today by Saskatchewan. There's dissension between the head coach and the general manager. Pau Pau started at quarterback, was awful. Jordan wasn't much better. Here's Pau Pau being hit by Grover Covington, forcing the fumble in the second quarter. Linebacker Mike Walker out of Washington State scoops it up, 37-yard touchdown, 24-0 Hamilton. 3 minutes later, a 2nd and 10 from the Riders' 38-yard line. Kenny Hobart, loved to dance, who started the week as the leading rusher in the East, 3rd in the CFL behind Winnipeg's Reeves and BC's Jenkins. Ken Hobart goes 38 yards for the touchdown to make it 31-0 Hamilton. Hobart is the greatest single-season quarterback rusher in all of CFL history.
Hope you're all
a very enjoyable afternoon here. Thanksgiving Day 1985 for the Hamilton Ticats. Two very happy men standing down on the field. The head coach Al Bruno and quarterback Kenny Hobart. Al, you've been complaining you want to get to the dressing room. We'll talk to you first. First of all, congratulations. You have surprised an awful lot of people in this country.
Well, I don't know. I think the players are playing well. I got to go in there and see them. They did play a hell of a job. The defense played great, Brian, and you know, those so-called experts. You know, we won more than one game. We're in the thick of it just like anybody else in our league, and I'm really happy for the coaching staff and the players.
Al, we've seen Ken pass better today than he has all year. Ken Hobart.
Ken Hobart did a great job today. He ran the ball well, and I believe he broke some kind of a record. He passed a lot better, and the offensive line gave him some protection that he needed. We caught the ball very well, and defense gave us good field position.
Dieter Brock is in Los Angeles enjoying himself there, but it looks like you found a replacement.
It looks that way. I feel good for Hobart. I feel good for Dieter Brock, and let's hope they both have winning seasons.
All right, you want to get to the dressing room. Thank you, Al Bruno. Let's move over to Kenny Hobart. Ken, I'm not sure if you're aware of the fact, but with 83 yards rushing in the first half, you have established a single-season rushing record for quarterbacks in the Canadian Football League.
I didn't know I had until I came back out at halftime, and I heard the announcement, and you know, it's nice, but the main thing is we won, and we're in contention for a first-place spot in the East, and we just need to keep it going right now.
Kenny, we we've always known you've been a strong running quarterback. I think you've been bothered by the fact people have been saying Hobart can't pass. I would say you answered the critics here this afternoon.
Well, I've been told that all my life. I ran the ball my first years in college, and it was said I couldn't throw the ball. And, you know, I think you take out 2 bad games I had early in the season, and I'm throwing the ball at probably about 57%. So, but I'm learning, and I'm getting better every week, and as long as our offensive line keeps playing well, and it was nice to have Johnny Shepard back. He ran tough. As long as things keep going well up front, we'll be tough at the end.
Kenny, did it bother you, the repeated references to Dieter Brock? I mean, let's face it, you had a very tough act to follow coming in here.
No, I think Dieter and I are 2 different people. You know, I think Dieter's he's a great quarterback, no doubt, but I think maybe my abilities are more suited to this game up here, and it would be nice to have a Dieter Brock around to play under for a year or 2 and learn, but you know, there's nothing like getting thrown in the middle of the action and learning that way. And I mean, I'm happy to have it that way for me.
All right, thank you, Ken Hobart. I would say you've learned rather well without Dieter Brock. Our thanks to Al Bruno and Ken Hobart. Lots more to come. In fact, right now, let's return once again to Don Whitman of McMahon Stadium in Calgary.
11-1 is the halftime score, Brian, with the Stampeders leading the Toronto Argonauts. Just 1 touchdown in the football game. That came very early in the first quarter as the result of a pass interference call in the end zone. That gave Calgary a first down at the 5-yard line, and newcomer Dwight Beverly put it into the end zone at 3:17. The convert by J.T. Hay, plus a single by J.T. Hay, and then a 22-yard field goal by J.T. Hay in the second quarter, plus that single by Lance Chomick, results in the 11-1 score. Just 86 yards net offense for the Argos, and the Calgary Stampeders 168 yards through the first half, and we've had 5 turnovers. We'll be back, but first let's pause for this message.
The Calgary Stampeders, and it hasn't been an outstanding half as far as offensive football is concerned. Although Greg Vavra started out pretty auspiciously, but he's had 2 interceptions from the Argos that kind of broke his consistency. As far as the Argo quarterbacks are concerned, Ricky Turner was non-productive. They tried Danny Barrett, and he didn't do much better in there. They've got to do a lot better the second half. Ron, do you anticipate seeing Ricky Turner come back in here to start the second half?
I do. I really do. I think that what happened, Turner didn't go. Coach Abilovich tries Barrett to see if he gets it going. The half comes up. He figures, let's go back to the way we started the football game. It's like starting the game all over. Why not?
Absolutely. I think they're going to have to go that way. But what they're going to have to do, though, is give him a lot of support and see if they can't do something to get some points on the board early in this third quarter.
That's what they've got to do. But right now, here's the only touchdown of the first half. What it was, 5 yards on the draw play. Now we're going to start it up right now. And when the 5-yard line, you see James Curry and Dave Kersinger, number 69. All right, stop it a minute. You see number 74, Curry, running away from Kersinger. Now Kersinger will just sit there, and he'll wait on Ballard to come. Now he makes the block, bang, right there. And Bob Foley, the offensive center, goes out and blocks on Goodlow. And Paul Palmer makes his block. This is execution at its finest. There's not a white jersey for him to hit. Just jogged right on into the end zone. What do you think, Leo? Pretty well blocked?
Pretty well run play.
The line.
Well, you're going to see it again here. And Beverly, as you say, the linebacker on the inside hit the wrong hole. I think when you saw Curry start to the outside, the linebacker was supposed to fill up the middle. And the linebacker, instead of stepping in the middle, he went between the guards and tackle and just got caught up in there. We see Greg Vavra. I'll tell you, this kid has impressed me a little bit for not being in there all year, in spite of the fact that he's thrown a couple interceptions, Ron.
Well, we talked about him earlier. I know you said that he's a very intelligent guy. And Don...
By a score of 28-17. Only the 3rd win of the year for Calgary. They now have a record of 3-10, 6 points in the Western Conference standings, and they're 4 points behind the Saskatchewan Roughriders. And the Roughriders this afternoon lost 51-14 to the Hamilton Ticats. For the Toronto Argonauts, this could be a big blow in their playoff hopes for 1985, because they are now 4 points behind Ottawa, Montreal, and Hamilton, the 3 teams that share first place in the Eastern Conference.
Yes, and for the Argonauts, it's going to be very hard to get cranked up now. And, you know, asking Conrad to come back right now, unless he's 100% well, might not be advisable either, because they've almost got to start thinking about next year. It's going to be tough to make the playoffs this year, but this young man walking off the field, number 13, Greg Vavra, showing a lot of character here this afternoon. He hasn't been in there. He knew there was pressure on the coaching staff, because the coaching staff wanted to start number 16, Johnson, Rick Johnson, in there this afternoon, but Fabra went in there in front of the hometown people and did himself proud.
Danny Barrett did not start the ball game. He replaced Ricky Turner in the second quarter. He finished the ball game for the Toronto Argonauts. But his opposite number, Greg Fabra, was able to fire the strikes when they were required in the second half in giving the Calgary Stampeders a 28-17 victory. Well, Bud Riley, the head coach of the victorious Calgary Stampeders, is standing by down on the sideline. And Bud, despite the fact the Stampeders are out of the playoffs, you must have seen some good things out there this afternoon from your team.
Well, we're an awful young football team, and I think the people that we brought in recently have begun to play like we think they're capable of playing, and I think they are some players for the future of this ball club.
But explain to the people just how difficult it is to get an imaginative offense when you have as many changes as you guys have had during this season. Seems like you're always teaching the playbook, aren't you?
Yeah, you're having a lot of clinics, and you have new people in every day, so you get to review your own knowledge of football, and I kind of enjoy it. You know how it is when you're making a lot of changes, and you spend a lot of time talking to the players about what you're trying to do.
But Dwight Beverly got his first start today, and he certainly responded with better than 100 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Well, I think Beverly's going to be an excellent football player. He's a good, tough customer, and he's got good size. He's about 205, and I think he's a good football player. He can catch the ball, he can run, and he can block.
But yesterday we asked Earl Lunsford, the general manager, about next year, about you coaching the club. He said he hadn't made any decision yet. How do you feel? Would you like to coach again next year?
Well, I'm just going to wait and see how we finish up, and then we'll sit down and talk about these things. I'm not in a hurry to make any decisions. I've enjoyed both aspects of it. I was enjoying the personnel job, and now this dang coaching is in my blood so deep that it's hard to give it up.
Okay, Bud Riley, congratulations on your 28-17 victory this afternoon over the Toronto Argonauts here at McMahon Stadium. We'll be back with our Colling O'Keefe Game Stars after this match.
Supremacy. 9 CFL teams strive for a goal only one can achieve. The road to Grey Cup is challenging. Exceptional individual skills expressed in an arena of team effort. Montreal hosts Grey Cup 85. A week of festivities set the stage for the ultimate confrontation in Canadian sport. For information on Grey Cup in Montreal, dial this hotline 1-416-928-3535.
This afternoon at McMahon Stadium in Calgary, offensively, quarterback Greg Fabra, defensively, Eugene Belleville. And first of all, let's talk with Greg Fabra, your first starting assignment of 1985. How did you feel coming into the ball game, Greg?
I was relatively nervous going into the game. I didn't really get comfortable until the second half, and even probably the fourth quarter before we started to get some things going that we wanted to do against them, and they didn't really do anything that we didn't expect. So in the fourth quarter we got the flow going, and we moved the pocket around, and we were relatively successful.
Greg, did you feel that by formation that you could get Preston Young to move over to the wide side of the field? It seemed to me like you had the short side of the field, especially that seam to Emmanuel Tolbert wide open. Did you see something in the films?
Well, what was happening there is we basically had a couple of waste downs, second down and less than a yard to go, and the call came in from the bench, and all it was 4 seam patterns, and they tend to play what we call a cover 3 hold, where the halfback goes to the flat. They've got 3 deep coverage, and when you put four guys in the seam against their 3 deep, it generally works pretty well for you, and we unfortunately didn't hit any of them, but they were a couple easy touchdowns.
Greg, you had a fine game today as a quarterback, but it sure had to make you feel good to have a guy like Dwight Beverly back there to take a little bit of the heat off and get that running game going.
I'll tell you what, Dwight Beverly runs the ball so hard, it's incredible. He hits what we call draw plays like they're dive plays. And when you have a guy doing that and he has a good feel for the holes, where the hole's going to open up, and the flow of the defensive front 7, it just makes it that much easier for a quarterback.
Greg Fabra, congratulations on a strong performance this afternoon. Let's switch to a man who is on the other side of the football, defensive tackle Eugene Belleva. Eugene, you were involved in a lot of the play out there this afternoon.
Well, we had a lot of fun out there in defense. Our main concern was to keep the scramble lanes intact and stay in our pass rush lanes, and I think overall we did a good job on defense.
Did you feel that once Danny Barrett got in there that you could have a little bit more laxity as far as your rush lanes were concerned and come with a little bit more of a reckless rush than you could against Ricky Turner, for example?
Yeah, we kind of went reckless, but they're both rollouts. They like to run. If we take their main number 1 receiver away, they usually try to run right away. So we try to limit that as much as possible.
Your defense was set at the beginning of the year to be as strong as anybody's in the league. I'll bet it had to be great for you today to see that offense moving the football so well to keep you on the sidelines and give you a rest.
Yeah, it was excellent. I just love to see that, and I still think we do have one of the better defenses in the league, and I just like to say I have a lot of respect for everybody in this organization, and I think we're going to be a real contender next year. We're just rebuilding right now.
Eugene Beliveau and Greg Vavrick, congratulations on your selections as our Carling O'Keefe defensive and offensive game stars in a 28-17 victory over Toronto this afternoon at McMahon Stadium. One other game today in the Canadian Football League that took place at Iverwind Stadium in Hamilton, and standing by to give us a complete report on what took place between Hamilton and Saskatchewan, here's Brian Williams.
Thank you, Don. Once again, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to Iverwind Stadium in Hamilton. Don, I noticed at the top of your telecast the beauty of the snow-capped Rockies, a cool day in Alberta. It's been a warm, sunny day here in southern Ontario, and a great day for the Hamilton fans and their football team as they humiliate the Saskatchewan Roughriders by a score of 51-14. Let's pick up the play in the first quarter. The game was all over in the first half. Joe Paupow is passing. He is intercepted by the veteran Paul Bennett, the former Argonaut, Winnipeg Blue Bomber, having a great season, his 10th interception of the year down to the 18-yard line. On the next play, Kenny Hobart to a wide-open Rufus Crawford, 18-yard touchdown. Hamilton led 7-0. Let's move on to the second quarter. In fact, it's the first play of the quarter. Again, Hobart, who's not supposed to be a strong passer to the air, 36-yarder to number 75, Ron Ingram out of Oklahoma State in the Big 8, 17-0 for Hamilton. The Rough Riders were so sloppy today, both Paupow and Jordan, just a few seconds later. Turnovers killed them. Paupow is setting up the pass out of the right side of the screen. There he is, number 78. Covington makes the hit. Grover Covington forces the fumble. Linebacker Mike Walker out of Washington State scoops it up, 37-yard touchdown, 24-0 Hamilton second quarter. Now, 3 minutes later on a 2nd and 10, a lovely dance, Saskatchewan's 38-yard line, Ken Hobart, who started the week as the leading rusher in the East, 3rd overall behind Reeves and Jenkins, goes 38 yards to make it 31-0. He is the all-time single-season quarterback rushing leader. Kenny Hobart today going over 800 yards rushing. Hamilton, by the way, led 39-14 at the half. This is still in the second quarter. Homer Jordan out of Clemson in place of Paupow. A former Ottawa Rough Rider, Derek Zeno. The Riders missed a two-point conversion, trail 36-6. Less than 1 minute to play. Craig Ellis gets their second touchdown. A 3-yarder on the right side. They got the two-point conversion. They trailed 36-14. With a field goal, they were down 39-14 at the half. The only touchdown of the second half, third quarter, 2:03 to play. Hobart to Rufus Crawford for the touchdown. Crawford's second of the day. Hobart's third touchdown pass. The Hamilton Ticats move into a three-way tie for first place in the Eastern Conference, with Montreal and the Ottawa Rough Riders winning today by a score of 51-14. Don, it's interesting. There have been a lot of rumors about problems in Saskatchewan. Jack Goda and Bill Quitter are not seeing eye to eye. They are going to have to sit down after the season and straighten things out, or you are going to see major changes in Saskatchewan for the second year in a row. So a big win here today for the Ticats. Let's return it to you at Calgary's McMahon Stadium.
Thank you, Brian, and a big loss this afternoon for the Toronto Argonauts. And for a time in that third quarter, it didn't appear as though either team was going to pick up a first down. But finally, the offenses got on track, and the Calgary Stampeders with 355 net yards as opposed to 281 for Toronto. But much of that Toronto yardage coming when the issue was no longer in doubt. A final score of 28-17, and we talked about the blow this gives to the Argo playoff hopes in that Eastern Conference race, as they are now, I was trying to think how many points they are back. They are 4 points back now of the three teams, Ottawa, Montreal, and Hamilton.
Yeah, and I thought that Greg Vavra made a very smart remark at the end of that ball game, saying that he didn't get on track until the fourth quarter in that game. And I think the thing that really helped their football team was, and you remember Danny Barrett took the Argos down, they scored, and it looked like the Argos had changed the momentum. Vavra got that football and took them right out of danger and took them downfield. I think that was the deciding factor right there, Ron. What do you think?
Well, I think so, too. I was going to say the turning point, I thought. The Argonauts scored. Looks like they're coming around. And then against the wind, and late in the third quarter, he put a drive together that ended the third and turned around and marched it down the field, and that was a ball game. But, you know, it's been a very disappointing weekend. You know, when you look at Montreal Saturday against Edmonton, fighting for their lives and to come up flat. Now the Argonauts come up flat against the Calgary Stampeders. Well, I'll tell you, that Eastern Conference, anybody can win it, and the Argonauts are trying to play themselves out of it.
Well, we get the teams involved in that battle for first place on successive weekends, Next Saturday, we see the Ottawa Rough Riders travel to Olympic Stadium in Montreal. And the following week, the Ottawa Rough Riders will be at home to the Hamilton Tigers.
Whipping Ottawa 36-4. And the Ticats take over first place in the East with the win. The teams are tied on points with 14, but Hamilton has the edge with 2 wins over Ottawa this season.
The Ticats lead 1-0 in the first quarter when Paul Bennett breaks the game wide open. Taking this Ken Clark punt at his own 12-yard line, Bennett moves upfield, gets some great blocks, and sprints up the sideline. When he's done, he goes 98 yards in the punt return for the touchdown, and the Ticats lead 8-0. J.C. Watt's first completion of the day goes to Mark Perouse for a 50-yard pass and run gain to the 3-yard line. That sets up an Ottawa field goal. The Rough Riders trail 8-3. But in the second quarter, the Ticats come back. Ken Hobart swings it out to Tony Champion, and he gets 28 yards going down to the Ottawa 12-yard line. That sets up the first offensive touchdown of the game as Hobart lays one up for Steve Stapler. He makes the catch to make it 16-3. Interceptions were the story on the day for Hamilton. Here, Tony Bodine's pass is tipped and intercepted by Mark Streeter, who takes it for the touchdown. With 6 interceptions on the day, the Ticats have 45 on the season, setting a new CFL record. Ken Hobart closes up the scoring, going to Steve Stapler for the touchdown, and the Ticats beat Ottawa 36-4.
As far as the Argos are concerned, this is it. They host Montreal tomorrow at Exhibition Stadium, and if the Argos plan to keep their playoff hopes alive, they must win. A tie or loss will not do the trick, as Don Martin reports.
There are 2 games left in the regular season, but it comes down to one chance for the Argos. They must beat the Montreal Concordes, or they can forget about the playoffs. The key may be the performance of quarterback Conrad Holloway, who returned to the lineup after missing 9 games and led the team to last Sunday's win over Calgary. But Holloway realizes Montreal may be tougher.
They're a zone-oriented team, so that means we implement our zone part of our run and shoot and some of our other patterns, and we've just got to be patient. You got to, the onus is on the quarterback mostly because he's got to pick out the receivers, read the defenses. If they drop back in zones, go to underneath patterns. Don't get impatient and try to go for the big play because they're sitting back there in the zone, and that's what they're trying to do, entrap you. If you can run 10 or 11 plays in a drive and not make a mistake, then they're willing to give that to you. But if you get impatient and try to go for the big one, they're going to pick it up.
A lot of people were surprised, and I'm sure pleased to see you take off and run against Calgary. Is the knee as good this week as it was last week, or better?
Well, when you get out there and play, I guess you forget about that. It passed the test, so it's strong enough to play. But, you know, I guess I had to prove to myself that I could still run and take off. I mean, I'm not that fast, never was. But I'm not afraid of getting hit, and I guess that's the part that you have to get over. No matter how much you get prepared and make the knee stronger, you actually have to get hit first and develop in your own mind that you're ready to play, and I'm ready to play.
But Argo coach Bob Obilovich knows his quarterback can only do so much.
In the game against Calgary, it was more than just Conrad Holloway. We did an excellent job on special teams. Our defense played probably our best game of the year with the exception of the last 2 minutes when we allowed a touchdown when we shut them out for the whole game. So I'm hoping we can play that type of a game again and just improve on the last outing so that we can, you know, play the full 60 minutes.
Toronto and Montreal tomorrow afternoon at Exhibition Stadium. Anything less than a win will mean the end of the line for the Argos. Don Martin, CBC Sports, Toronto.
Also tomorrow in the CFL, BC is at Edmonton. The Lions are in second spot out west, just 2 points in front of the Eskimos.
If momentum means anything, the Eskimos have the advantage. The team has won 7 games in a row and feels good going into tomorrow's game against BC.
It's a very important ball game, and people can blow a winning streak and momentum out of proportion, but we'd be up for this game no matter what situation we're in.
But in the Lions, the Eskimos will face one of the league's toughest defenses. The Lions like to gamble and put pressure on the quarterback. If there are any weaknesses in BC's defense, they're hard to find.
We've been looking, and I'm still trying to find some, but no, they have excellent personnel, and our guys just have to go out and they have to go out and play their absolute best, and then we'll have a shot at it.
The Lions, in turn, respect the Eskimo defense, which is vastly improved. But the Eskimos' defensive strategy is much different than the Lions.
Their philosophy on defense is different in the fact that they do not attack as much, but they are very, very soundly coached. They don't do an awful lot of complicated things, but what they do very well, and they have good athletes.
In Ontario University football action today, Toronto down McMaster 18-7. It was York all over Windsor by a score of 49-13, and Western whipping Waterloo by a score of 42-3.
Western continue to roll along. Alberta with a big win over the Saskatchewan Huskies, 32-8.
I'll tell you who you have to be impressed with is Laurier. I tell you, I saw them play this year. They got a good football team. Beat Guelph 45-32. You have to have a good team.
Thursday, the Shenley Awards. Saturday, a Sports Weekend special edition featuring the Grey Cup Parade. And then on Sunday, countdown to Grey Cup and the game. Grey Cup Week on CBC.
It is halftime, and the BC Lions with that big lead over the Edmonton Eskimos. Good afternoon once again, everyone. I'm Brian Williams. Welcome back to CFL Control in Toronto. Coming up, George Athens takes a look at Montreal General Manager Joe Galat. Sue Prestige is standing by at Exhibition Stadium. She will bring us up to date on Montreal's win over Toronto with highlights and interviews. Let's get to baseball. Game 7 of the World Series goes tonight at Royal Stadium in Kansas City. You know, the St. Louis Cardinals, they were so cocky before this World Series began. They were predicting they were going to take it in 4 straight. The Blue Jays weren't anything. Kansas City wasn't anything. Now, the Cardinals are looking over their shoulders. They're thinking, hey, maybe the same thing could happen to us that happened to the Toronto Blue Jays. The Royals were sensational last night in tying that series of 3 games. It's interesting, big bad St. Louis is having as much trouble with left-handers as Toronto did, and Brett Saberhagen, who has won 1 game in this World Series, will start tonight for Kansas City. The Cardinals sending their ace, 2-game winner so far, John Tudor. Game number 7 tonight in Kansas City, and as George Brett says, the pressure is squarely on St. Louis. Let's get to football. We begin the weekend with a game played yesterday in Ottawa. Very impressive win for the Hamilton Ticats over the Rough Riders. I tell you, Al Bruno has done a good job of bringing Hamilton along. He's getting excellent quarterbacking from Kenny Hobart. They've always had a good defense. Their specialty team strong yesterday. Here's Kenny Clark, the leading punter in the CFL, to the veteran Paul Bennett, the all-time leading punt returner, Bennett, with the touchdown, 99 yards. That's all they needed as they clobbered the Ottawa Rough Riders 36-4. Hamilton with a new CFL record for season interceptions of 44. More on the Eastern standings in just a minute. Right now, here's George Athens in Montreal with a look at Joe Galat. He stepped down this week as head coach and is now simply the general manager.
After assessing the situation the last couple of days, I decided it would be in the best interest of the football team if I were to take position as the general manager and appoint our assistant, fine offensive line coach, Gary Durchek, as the head coach.
Galat made that announcement last Monday at Olympic Stadium, 2 days following the Concordes' 5th consecutive loss, a 30-7 defeat at the hands of the Ottawa Rough Riders.
So I think the pressure came from what was happening on the field, and each week I thought more about it, and I don't think any person can not look at themselves when things aren't going well. And I have tried to set an example over the ball club and tell them about a certain standard of quality, and when that's not met, then the player had to be gone. So it's the same situation, I think, with a coach. If the coach isn't meeting that certain standard, then he has to be gone. And I think the critical part of our situation here is to promote the football team and to get the football team sold to the public.
Until last Monday, Galat was the only coach and general manager in the CFL. But when times got tough for the team, both jobs were too much for one person.
I was continuously trying to do what I thought would be the best thing for the long-range future of the club and trying to sell the product, and yet in the afternoons I had to go out on the field. I had to be there. And I found myself torn between what I thought maybe would be in best interest of, say, the franchise and what I had to do as a football coach.
Injuries and a lack of offense have been the Concordes' biggest problems lately. But when Joe Galat was asked what's gone wrong, he delivered another one of his clever lines, but this time without his familiar smile.
Well, I asked the head coach. He couldn't give me any answers, so we're getting a new one.
And the new coach of the Concordes is Gary Durchek, the son of an Ohio bricklayer who must now get this team back on solid ground. From Olympic Stadium in Montreal, I'm George Athens. Now, back to Brian Williams at CFL Control in Toronto.
Thank you, George. Durchek was a winner this afternoon, and when we come back, we will check in with CBC's Sue Prestige at Exhibition Stadium. Stay with us as CFL 85 continues.